Okay, hello and welcome to the Scoreboard Podcast. I'm your host, Rivka Boord of Jets X Factor, home of the best New York Jets content on the internet. Today I have a special guest with me, Adam, aka wa2k99. I think a lot of you may know him from other Jets streams from his own channel, which I am subscribed to, and you should too. He'll tell you a little bit more about that. But Adam, thanks so much for joining.
Rivka, it's a pleasure to finally be able to talk to you on the air for the first time. It's usually just been in chat rooms, but yeah, I'm very excited for this, and yeah, I'm thrilled to be here today. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. So I guess you could start just by telling me and the listener, the audience, a little bit about yourself, your background as a Jets fan, where the name wa2k came from, a few things like that.
Pretty much all the usual questions I get every time. I understand. So pretty much I grew up in the early 80s in central New Jersey. Not too far, I believe, from where you were. Not far from where Nick Shine grew up. We were born in the same hospital. So a lot of us have a lot of connections. We just didn't know of each other until many, many years down the road. But I grew up really a New York football fan, but slowly started to gravitate towards the Jets over due time. I just tend to go for the underdog, and it just seemed more fitting than the Giants, especially once the whole 80s time ended. It's like my next door neighbor was a big Jets fan. I think he's the one to really blame for all of this. And I think it just kind of went from there. Eventually moved to Chicago midway through high school, and that's when my New York fandom really started to escalate because all of a sudden I was the outcast, completely rooting for these New York teams in the middle of the second city. But as far as wa2k99, so that actually goes back to my senior year of high school in Chicago. So I went to a high school called Wheaton Academy, had 2 great years there, and worked on the yearbook for a little bit. And at the time, I graduated high school in 1999. And that was during the whole Y2K scare, that whole thing. So I thought, wait a second, I go to Wheaton Academy, let's just make it wa2k. And we put the 99 kind of on the end of it. And so that kind of became the theme of the yearbook. And then when I started to do different things, like my username, it's like, well, no one's ever going to use this. And little did I know, so the next thing I know, I'm on different people's channels, and they're calling me by this name, but nobody knows what it means. And so down the road, when I did start my own channel, I made it more distinctive so people would actually know what it was. So then came New York Sports Wicker Media, and that's been going for 2 years. But I guess the other things to mention is I was president of the Virginia Jets fans group for like 5-6 years. I was with the group for 7 years and president for 5, and that is now ending since I am moving to Raleigh, North Carolina next week. Thursday is my moving day. So right now, if I gave you a view of the apartment, it looks like a complete cardboard factory right now. Just stacks of boxes piled one on top of another. But I am looking forward to heading down to the Raleigh area and meeting some new Jets fans down there as well. So.
Okay, thank you for that summary. So you introduced yourself to me. I finally assuage or assuage, I don't know how to pronounce it, my curiosity just about your name because that's something I always wondered about. Okay, so now let's get to the topic at hand, the Jets and the draft. So I guess I'll start my question just by an overview, and I know you did, you've done your own videos on this stuff, but what did you think of the Jets draft overall in light of, let's say, what the 2024 season is going to mean to them?
The whole thing going into the draft for me was, is Joe Douglas going to focus on players who can contribute immediately, or is he looking more long-term? And I say that because I thought last year it was a little bit too much of a focus on down the road. Pretty much the vast majority of those draft picks were for later. Will McDonald, JBC, Zaire Barnes, Izzy Abanikanda. Like Joe Tippmann, you can make an argument, was about the only player you could have expected to start right away. And so then after the season happens, we all know how that went. And now all of a sudden you've got a win or else season. Thankfully, Aaron Rodgers is back, but now Joe Douglas knows that the pressure's on. He's got to get some players who can instill a winning culture right away. Because, we could say positives, we could say negatives. I mean, I'm definitely a Joe Douglas defender, but even I couldn't deny if they don't make the playoffs this year, regardless of the reason, you can't keep going on like this. Something would have to change. And so when they brought in a lot of veterans on 1-year deals, I'm like, yeah, this goes against what they would do, but he's doing this out of desperation. What's he going to do in the draft? And the more I saw as each pick was coming off the board and I saw what the Jets were doing, I'm like, I really like what's happening here. There's a good balance between players who are going to play next year or down the road and players who can contribute to this offense immediately, which, as we know, was the hands down worst offense in the NFL, and it wasn't even close. Almost any statistic that you could talk about. So Braylon Allen and Malachi Corley, those were two players in particular that I wanted. Like, I had them both in my top 5 running backs and wide receivers. I like them that much. So when we were able to get them, I was absolutely thrilled. Of course, there's always some questions about position, but one thing that I always try to tell people is don't get married on a position at a pick number. The board is going to go how it's going to go. You just have to get the best players you can that are going to help your team. It's now quarterback might be the one exception to that, but I just think it's too easy to say, we got to take a cornerback here, a wide receiver here, and an offensive lineman here, because that's not how NFL general managers do it. So, but yeah, as the draft went on, yes, I was happier and happier as it went on.
Okay. Now, I guess that goes into a little bit of my thought is, do you think they used the draft well enough to fill the remaining needs that they had? Like specifically, because if you look at certain areas, like to me, this draft was about ensuring the depth. Like, I know some people were like, get a weapon that could help you now. And obviously they wanted that. And to a certain extent, they did get that with Corley, with the running backs. But it was more about, where do the Jets have weaknesses and where can they raise the floor of their team? Because to me, the ceiling of this team could be very high. But the problem is, we saw, what we kind of saw last year, especially with injuries, the floor could be very, very low with depth. So I wanted to see, ensure as much as possible against that. Do you think they did enough to ensure that depth and to, fill in for the weaknesses that they have on the team?
At certain positions, yes. I didn't expect to draft 2 running backs. I don't think anybody did. But I definitely felt the second running back was sorely needed. I felt good about I'm just thinking about a couple different positions. Tight end, I always felt pretty good about. 1 through 4, I had a good feeling about it. And we know Aaron Rodgers loves to use his tight ends. And there may not be a quarterback in the history of the league who is as good as maximizing the value of a tight end as number 8 is. So I have a good feeling about that. I wanted a little bit more on especially in the interior defensive line, because we have all these guys under 1-year contracts, plus Quinnen, of course. But I don't want to be back in the same position where we got to bring in another 3 defensive tackles. Now, Leonard Taylor, maybe he can earn a spot. Maybe he could be here for the long term. That remains to be seen. But I did expect them to use a pick somewhere with defensive tackle and also the interior offensive line. I think we both have the same idea as far as somebody who could come to the Jets and help that particular situation. But especially if Joe Tippmann, God forbid, were to go down, who's playing center? Jason Hanson? I mean, what are we talking about here? So, I thought depth did help, but I feel like they were addressing that last year because we got some second-year players on this team, like on defense, special teams, things like that. The best teams in the NFL, the organizations that know how to do business, they pick the guys that they invest in, but the other ones do become dispensable. Look at the Patriots, look at the Ravens, look at the Packers, all these teams that have sustained success. Not saying they win a ton of Super Bowls, but they're always in contention. You have a high floor. We haven't seen that as Jets fans in decades, and so I think that was one of the biggest things that I saw is I feel like the Jets are trying to create that model where certain players will be let go, but then you've got other players ready to step into those shoes. So certain positions I still have some questions about. I don't think this is a complete roster yet. And I think Joe Douglas would tell you the same thing, particularly at defensive tackle and possibly even at safety as well. I think those would be the two positions, and IOL, of course.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I really wanted, my thought process was that they would go receiver, like before day 2. I was like, they'd go receiver in the third round. I figured they would, and then I figured that the 4th round picks, I wanted to see safety, defensive tackle, interior offensive lineman, and then I figured they could get a running back in the 5th round. So I know that they ended up trading around and doing a bunch of stuff, but they didn't address any of those 3 positions, which, to me, it was like, okay, they were very clearly going to draft a running back. But taking 2 running backs and then not addressing any one of those positions. And now, look, I understand, Joe Blewett makes this point all the time, what kind of player are you getting in the 4th or 5th round? these are the kinds of positions where you can get a quality backup. Like again, the Jets weren't looking for a starter necessarily. Although whatever opinion I have about starting defensive tackle, they're looking for another guy in the rotation who's just going to be able to fit in the mix, kind of deal with an injury, help out, hopefully maybe grow into a bigger role. You can find a guy like that in the 4th or 5th round. You can find a backup safety who's going to do a decent job in the 4th or 5th round. You can actually even find a starting interior offensive lineman in the 4th round. And so I was kind of like on that train of like, you can do this on the cheap, and then you don't have to pay. You're not going to have to pay for this in free agency, particularly since, look, the JFM trade was a salary dump. They're clearly more concerned about their salary than maybe we would have even known.
No, that's true. Actually, I want to go back to one thing that you said sort of in the beginning there. You mentioned a couple of positions, but I noticed one position I didn't hear you mention was quarterback. What were your thoughts on the quarterback situation, and was that something you wanted to see them address in this draft?
So I knew they would. I didn't really care too much, to be honest, because I don't really believe in the whole mid-round developmental quarterback thing. Just the chances of it actually working out, honestly, right now, the way I look at Jordan Travis is if he could become the Jets' primary backup and be a successful one, that would be a major win from this pick. That's just the way I look at quarterbacks in general. If you look around the league, almost every good quarterback around the league was a first-round pick.
The vast majority.
Look, there are exceptions, and obviously first-round picks bust, but most of the ones who turn out good were first-rounders or second-rounders. And so I for the most part, I knew they were going to take one. It wasn't high necessarily on my priority list.
I didn't feel like they had to do it this year, but there were a couple of them. I was like, okay, if they draft this player, then fine, I get it. I couldn't believe Michael Pratt didn't go to like the very end of the draft. That was very surprising to me. Not that I felt he had a high ceiling. I don't, but I feel like at the least I could see him being like a Josh McCown type quarterback where he hangs around for a long time, goes from team to team, and could step in because he's a good fundamental quarterback. I thought he was going to go 4th round. That was one of the biggest surprises of the draft for me. That was that definitely ranked right up there. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the depth at wide receiver. Because I think we all feel pretty good about 1 through 3 for the most part, and I'm assuming Williams is going to be fine. Mm-hmm. But after that, it's a lot of question marks between Allen Lazard and all the kids, between Brownlee, Gibson, different players like that. And do they, is there a chance Corey Davis would actually come back? As of right now, I would lean against it. But I'm very happy with what they have 1 through 3. And if this becomes primarily like a 2 tight end offense, if Ruckert can emerge a little bit more this year and be in that 2 tight end set, and that helps you with your blocking even more, plus you've upgraded the offensive line as well, Rodgers is going to have that wall that we really needed. And if you give him enough time to throw, we've seen he will turn nobodies into credible NFL players, and he'll turn credible NFL players into getting paid big money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that reminds me, the other thing I was saying, if they didn't address those 3 positions, I was thinking that I wanted them to double up at receiver. And I'm still kind of like, look, the Miami Dolphins doubled up at receiver. Yes, it was in the 6th and 7th round, but the Dolphins drafted Malik Washington in the 6th round. He was the guy I liked. I was like, I knew they loved Corley, but like I liked Malik Washington.
I like him too. Yeah, I'm with you.
And then they got Taj Washington also, and they signed Odell Beckham Jr. So they seem to think that receivers and running back are the only important positions in football.
They think they're playing NFL Blitz or something, like in the arcade.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
But they didn't really do enough to address their other issues.
Meanwhile, the got decimated during the offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. But, I mean, I agree about the receiver position. I wanted Corey Davis back. I was watching Rich Cimini with Jake Asman last week, and he basically said he would be very surprised if that happens. He doesn't think, and I've sort of started to learn over recent times that the Jets they miss out on a lot, but what they do say tends to be along the lines of what the Jets are actually thinking, because I saw Cimini say that John Franklin Myers could be the odd man out. And I didn't think so. And then he was right about it. And it sounded like he had more information on that than he had been letting on. There are other things I've heard. Connor Hughes, right before they picked Ola Fashanu, when they were on the clock, said, look at Fashanu. He not even Bowers. Meaning he seemed to somehow, it seems like the beat. Look, I have a lot of bad things to say about the Jets beat, but when they do say something, they tend to be saying things a lot from actual solid info. So if Rich Cimini says he doesn't think Corey Davis is coming back, I don't really either think Corey Davis is coming back.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning against it. I mean, I could give Lazard one more year, much as I don't want to. We know it's going to cost a ton of money to get out of it right now. After 2 years, it's a little bit more manageable, and you'll start to lose some of these dead cap hits that they have right now. I mean, this is the first year in a long time where the Jets have a lot of dead money on the cap, but it's going to start to fade away as next year goes on. And yeah, it is one of those things. And Malik Washington, he's got some gallones. He's already saying that we've already got the best wide receiver. Yeah, you might, but how many receptions are you going to get, pal?
I mean,
how much are you contributing to this, Malik? I just wonder.
I was surprised about it because they like to use both Waddle and Hill in the slot at times. And Malik really is a slot only guy. Like even for a 5'8" guy, like if you just watch him play, he really he doesn't do well against press. He's not Tyreek Hill in that sense. Like he really is a slot guy. And so it was. I mean, look, they took him in the 6th round. It was, in that sense, it's a great value pick. But in terms of his actual usage, you wonder.
Yeah, is Braxton Berrios still there?
I was going to check that up. Because if Braxton Berrios is there, forget it.
Oh, please. I mean, he might be a returner, but I think Taj Washington, doesn't he return also? I think he's a returner from the little I know. I think so as well.
It looks like Braxton Berrios is still on the Dolphins from everything I can tell. Let me check over the care.
That's quite the wide receiver room right there.
Yeah.
But they like bringing in a lot of guys with a lot of baggage.
Yep.
Ramsey, Beckham. I mean,
yeah, he's still on them. So they have not all those guys are going to make the team, but yeah, you definitely have Berrios. Again, yeah, Malik Washington's going to have to earn his stripes with Miami. I was upset. That one kind of annoyed me because I was just like, he was my guy,
Gotcha. He was a lot of people's guy. I know a lot of people liked him. I was one of them too. The first video I did, when I do my Wednesday night show, what I did for a while, I was breaking down a certain position and players that I like, but I broke down wide receiver into early round and then mid round. And the mid round was the first thing that I addressed. And yeah, Washington was one of my favorites, but Corley was my number one guy. And when I say that, I mean guys I thought would go after the 2nd round. Mm-hmm. Little did I know he'd be the first pick in the 3rd round, the way that it would go, because there were reports he was going to go in the 50s. Like he was going to go super, super early. And and one thing I do need to mention about Miami as well, their biggest loss of the year, Vic Fangio being gone.
Yeah.
That defense is going to be, it's like I've seen the memes. Who's going to stop this offense? And we're like, anytime the weather is below 50 degrees, that'll take care of it pretty well.
Yeah, it's true. But at the same time, the Jets did lose to them by a combined 64-13. So they, obviously Rodgers fixes a lot of that, but it's actually one thing that I know we're getting into the Miami subject, but I was looking it up. DJ Reed actually had a really good year, except for the 2 games against Miami. Yeah. Now he had one or two other where he gave up touchdowns, but it was basically against Miami, he gave up literally 18 catches for 300 yards.
It was not good. It was not good, but yeah, I'll still take my chances with DJ. We'll see what happens after this season because, we got quite a few free agents in that secondary. Not that I want to look ahead to 12 months from now, but still, they're going to have to make some decisions. And, Quantez Stiggers, I don't know if he's going to be a starting cornerback, but they got the other guy, I think, was it Jairus Monroe, as an undrafted free agent. He's got some good cover ability as well. But I'd say Stiggers was a guy that I actually profiled 3 weeks before the draft.
Oh, nice.
It was actually pretty funny. I went back and watched, I'm not going to mention the channel, but I went back and watched certain broadcasts because I want to see how different people were reacting to these broadcasts. And when Quantez Stiggers was announced, these guys, it's like they've been injected with with downers or something, with Prozac. It's Quantez Stiggers. I'm like, you don't know this guy's story? You don't know who he is? 29 teams are at his pro day. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to be Revis part 2, but I am saying if he doesn't make it, it's sure ain't going to be because he had a lack of heart, desire, or work ethic. And you take chances on guys like that later on. Worst case, they can become really good special teams players. And with the new kickoff rules that are coming into play, it's going to matter more than it ever did before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Stiggers will make the roster year 1 because of special teams ability. I also suspect that the Jets drafted him more with Eccles' position in mind, meaning Eccles was a free agent after the season. I don't, again, a 5th round pick. I don't think that their goal was necessarily that he'll become, DJ Reed's replacement. But if he could become Eccles' replacement, remember Eccles was what, a fifth round pick, I think, 5th, 6th.
Fifth sounds right. No, definitely no more than
fifth.
fourth. It was either
Yeah,
fourth.
I think he was a fifth rounder. And so, again, that's where if you can get your fourth or fifth corner, sorry, did you freeze? Okay, no, if you can get your your backup cornerback there, it's a great pick. And so I suspect that that's more where they're thinking. But with DJ Reed, it looks to me like he's not going to be back next year. I think they're going to extend Carter. I think they're going to have to. I think they have to extend Carter. I think Carter is more valuable at his position. Oh, so someone said Alan said Eccles was sixth.
He was the sixth round, yeah.
Yeah, so you have Carter is more valuable at his position than Reed is at his, I think.
I think it's actually harder to play slot corner than it is to play outside corner because you don't have the sideline as a boundary for one thing. You got to deal with the shiftiness and you got to react to like the fast, twitchy guys. And if you have a really good slot cornerback, I mean, that is a valuable weapon to have nowadays in the NFL. I think more and more people are realizing it. I mean, we see that with the Pro Bowl, that there was like a slot corner position for that. And it seems like the going rate on these guys, it's about $10 million a year or so. And to me, that seems more than reasonable. But some of his teammates, not MC2 himself, but some of his teammates, it's like, your turn's coming. After Kenny Moore got signed, I think Teron Johnson, I think from Buffalo got a deal, if I remember.
Yes, he did.
I know Kenny Moore did. Okay. So, yeah, they're saying it's your turn next. Because they know.
I think it is. I think the Jets will get him done this offseason because they'd be foolish to let him hit the open market.
Right.
He's too important to their defense. And yes, I think they'd love to keep Reed. He's done everything right. He's said everything right. He's a great leader. He's a big part of their, heart of their defense. But I just think as you said, you can't pay everybody. And they do have a lot of free agents next year. And so that could end up being an issue. But let's see. You mentioned. I touched upon it. The John Franklin Myers trade. So this trade looks worse and worse the more information that comes out about it. I thought they'd be able to get more than a 6th round pick for him, but I guess the salary dump just made them take whatever you can get. But then when you find out that Denver offered him a 2-year, $15 million deal, it's like the Jets couldn't give him that. And that they never offered him anything near that. They lost money by trading him rather than signing him to that deal.
I thought they did save $7. Well, then it wouldn't be a salary dump.
If he had taken that pay cut with them, they would have saved $8-something million.
Right around $8 million. Yeah, just under 8.
So no, but meaning if he had taken that, his cap hit was 16.4, I think 16.4 million was his original cap hit. And now his cap hit with Denver is $5 million for 2024. The way they structured it, it's $5 million in 2024, and I think $10 million in 2025. His cap hit wouldn't have been $5 million with the Jets because he still had previous dead cap. So it would have been $7.4 million. But his cap would have gone down from $16 million to $7.4 million. That's a savings of what, 8.6 something, 8 point something million?
8, yeah, right around there.
I think it was, I think the numbers in the end were something like 8.7 and 8.8. And then when they traded him, they only saved $7.9 million. So literally, if they had given them the same exact contract that Denver did, they would have saved more money than they did by trading him in 2024. That is.
But at the same time, he had $29 million guaranteed coming to him over the next 2 years. They couldn't do that.
That's the point. He's not getting that with Denver anymore.
Right. He's not.
The money that's dead on the Jets cap was already paid to JFM. It's not as if he's getting that money in the future.
So here's what it comes down to me. He was willing to restructure with Denver, but not with the Jets to an extent. Why is that? Playing time. That's what it comes down to for me. Because one of the advantages, we're starting to see the advantages and disadvantages of this defense. The advantages, you're fresh, you got energy, we send a steady stream of pass rushers at you, we rush with 4, you know what's coming, but still you got to stop it. But now we're starting to see the downfall of it. Bryce Huff left. JFM left. I know that was a trade, but it's still the same idea. Because if I'm going to get paid hypothetically about the same amount of money, let's just say it's about the same. If I know I'm going to play tops 40, 45% of the time as opposed to being a 3-down lineman with this other team, I want to be on the field. I want to be on the field more. And I think that's one of the main reasons Bryce Huff left. He was going to be a pass rush specialist with the Jets primarily. JFM, I still think and I know some people are, this makes some people sigh, and I get it, but I think the intention of Michael Clemens is take that kind of spot, that edge setter, sort of where he's not a versatile pass rusher. He isn't. All he can really do is bull rush. And the mistake the Jets made with him is they had him put on weight. But by doing that, it took away his quickness. So that year didn't work out for Clemens. I still want to see what he does this year. Now, hopefully Braden McGregor's – I'll tell you what, Braden McGregor, let us not forget him, the undrafted free agent from Michigan. He could rush the passer, but he could also defend the run. Watching his highlights, he gets off the line fast. I think he's got a very good chance to get a spot on this roster. And if he does, that could spell trouble for the likes of Michael Clemens. But, yeah, the Jets do need help with the run defense. I don't think, though, it's as pronounced as a lot of people would have us believe, because the Jets were down early last year. The other teams didn't want to deal with the pass rush in the corner, so they ran the ball. Once Al Woods goes down, it's curtains. It was done. Quentin Jefferson, God bless him, great guy. His run stopping win rate was like 30%. He couldn't stop the run. So
yeah, but neither can Javon Kinlaw though.
Yeah,
neither can Javon Kinlaw though. It's the same stuff. Kinlaw, you watch him, it's the same stuff. It's the penetrating, and he just gets knocked. They let him go where he's going, and then they just run past him.
Let's see what Fotu does. I mean, who knows? But I think McGregor or Taylor, either one of them could unseat like a Kinlaw or somebody like that. I'm not overly worried about if Kinlaw is the biggest issue with this defense. We're going to be happy.
Fair enough. I would agree with that. I guess my concern is, you look last year and it felt like, the Jets really had they had a pretty deep edge class, and now because they lost JFM, so now Reddick will probably play more snaps than JFM did, presumably. Right. Because JFM only played about 55% altogether. I think they put him at like 37% on the edge and 18% inside. Maybe I'm off a little bit, something like that. Maybe it was like 40-20, whatever it was.
We're good.
But you had JFM, and now Reddick is going to play more snaps, but that just means now their third guy is Will McDonald, and he becomes, look, I guess I'm a little bit inconsistent in this way, because on the one hand, when they got Reddick and they still had JFM, and I thought they're keeping JFM, I'm like, wow, the McDonald pick looks even worse now, because not only was he not going to play year one, he's not even really going to play year two. But now that they got rid of JFM and McDonald is in that Huff role, now I'm concerned. I'm like, we're going to be relying on McDonald to take a major leap in year two. And yikes, I'm a little nervous about that.
Right. JJ was able to. So
no, it's true. Absolutely. And the truth is, McDonald showed more in his year one tape, albeit in a lot fewer snaps, than JJ did in year one, especially as a pass rusher.
I think that's very fair. I mean, JJ was more of a two-way defensive lineman, more so than what Will McDonald is. So it's like comparing apples and pomegranates in a way. But, I think it might be a situation where if it's more of a run situation, it's going to be Reddick and JJ, and I'll take my chances with those two, for sure. And then if McDonald comes in more on the obvious passing downs, then that's fine. I mean, we've seen his explosion. We've seen him get into the backfield and knock down running backs, not just quarterbacks, but he's relying on his quickness and the bendability in order to do that. But I think, I can't say for sure what kind of leap he's going to make, but he's going to have every opportunity to make it. But you know what? And if he becomes like the next Bryce Huff, then maybe a few years from now, we have to get the next Will McDonald. It might be that kind of a situation. Okay, granted, one's a first-round pick and one's an undrafted free agent, but you understand my idea.
Yeah, so the only thing is, I think that McDonald is a better run defender than Bryce Huff. I do. I think that he's more capable. I think that McDonald could turn into a Hassan Reddick. Their body types are somewhat similar. Again, kind of skinny, but like Reddick is maybe a below average run defender, but he's not terrible. Like the Jets would be okay with playing him on rundowns. I see McDonald. You watch his film. Look, he played a lot of run defense snaps last year, and he wasn't terrible. Like, look, I don't normally use PFF grades, but when it comes to run defense, there's not much else out there, especially publicly available. Like ESPN run win rates are not really and those are sporadically available. And so you watched him. I mean, his PFF grade was, I think, 63.9. It's not terrible. I mean, Huff's was 48. You watch it and you combine that with what you see on film. I see McDonald as being able to develop into more of a – I know the Jets are going to use him in that role, but I think it might be selling him a little bit short in the long run. And look, if they don't extend Reddick, it could be that they will look for McDonald to take that in year 3 to become that starter.
The pipeline just keeps on spinning and spinning. And hey, with the draft capital they'll have to work with next year, it might be a situation where it's like, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and take the best edge rusher we could possibly take next year.
Wouldn't shock me if they're still here.
Here's the good thing: they have options. They have options. That was one of the best things about the draft this year and even last year. It wasn't best player available. It's like you look at team needs, and you may as well have just put what the Jets' needs weren't, because that would have taken a lot less time to write that out, right? But it's at a point where it's like, okay, we're this position. If they don't address it here in the draft, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with rolling with what we have. And so when you get to that sort of a situation, you're just looking for the biggest difference maker you can get. And we know this administration, it's all about getting to the quarterback, which makes all the sense in the world because history has shown it works. And as the NFL has become more and more of a passing league, you better have some guys who get, especially when you don't blitz. That's the other thing. Since we don't blitz, we've got to do it with 4. That's the way that it's going to be. We'll blitz maybe once every half. That seems like that's about what. Sometimes we'll see like MC2 on a blitz, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. But yeah, it's one of those things. So if you have to keep investing premium capital in getting pass rushers, if you're doing it with 4, that's what you have to do because that's what makes the rest of your defense work.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why, in a way, like now you look at the way the defense is and sort of retroactively the McDonald pick makes more sense because it's like, okay, they needed this kind of, I didn't love it again because mainly because I really wanted the receiver. I like the player. Again, I like Will McDonald, but I just thought they really needed a receiver there once they couldn't get the tackle. I felt that they got a little panicked and they maybe, and they reached. I didn't like drafting a guy in an all-in season who was only going to play 19% of the snaps. But if year 2, if he ends up playing 40% of the snaps and he could show, look, I'm not expecting Bryce Huff. I'm not putting Bryce Huff expectations on him, although I think he has that potential, to be honest. I really do.
And Bryce Huff took some time to develop. Remember, year 2, he had a really good rookie year, but year 2, he had a back injury. That really limited. It wasn't until like last year, and he got a little better. It wasn't like he came here and was a star instantly, but you saw the raw ability very early. I remember defending him like on one of the other shows, and I got nailed that I was like a Bryce Huff ass kisser and all of this kind of stuff. Well, yeah. Enough said.
You should go take that snip and and put it on your channel as take a victory lap for that.
Right. It didn't happen on my channel. I was guessing.
So what? You could still go find it and snip it.
Hey, I'm wrong. For everything I'm right about, there's probably 20 things I'm wrong about.
Same here.
In all realism. But we're bold enough to put our takes out there. Yeah, what was the I can't remember what the other have I told you the Will McDonald draft story? When I was with the Virginia Jets fans, that? Okay, I'll tell you the story. So we do a raffle every year with the Virginia Jets fans. I write down every name of somebody who might be taken in the draft, and then I put that into a hat. And then whoever the Jets take with their first round pick, they win a raffle prize, basically. So last year I had about 40 slips of paper. And I even had everything that said any kicker, any linebacker, and it was I was covering up every trade out of the first round was there. But I had one slip of paper marked other. And when Will McDonald was drafted, I said, I didn't write his name down because I never thought in a million years the Jets would ever draft him. So my friend Chip, God bless him, he's 65 years old, and that deep Long Island accent he's got. And he wound up winning because he had he looked at me, he's like, what the hell do I do with this thing that says other? It's nobody gets it. Basically, you win. And he won because they're not coming. So
yeah,
that did not happen this year, however. I did write down Ola Fashanu, just for the record.
Yes. And it was gratifying at least to see that we weren't so far off the mark. Yeah, it's funny actually, because I remember before the pick, so Robbie Sabo had gone on, I don't remember with who, but he went on some podcast, and I think he's like a lot of us on Jets X Factor. We don't necessarily go into depth draft time. It's not our kind of, because none of us are really big college football analysts. So Joe Blewett kind of goes into the Jets' most likely first round picks before the draft. We'll look at some of the names, but we don't necessarily go into a full 7 round kind of in depth, because we just find that it's not a good use of manpower for the site and different things like that.
Yeah.
And so Robbie Sabo is one of them. So he asked us, can you give me some of the names of the top edge rushers in the draft? Because I still could see the Jets going with an edge rusher. And we didn't give him Will McDonald's name. We were like Nolan Smith, Lucas Van Ness, whatever. Will McDonald didn't even.
Yeah, we did a whole mock draft, like the first 2 rounds of the mock draft, up until I think where the Jets were picking in the second round, I think is what we did. So we got 50 picks, something like that. I think Will McDonald went around pick 40-ish, 35 to 40. It was right in that range. And I was debating because my turn came around and it was going to be an edge rusher. It was either Will McDonald or one other guy. I can't remember who it was. It may have been Nolan Smith. I don't remember, but that's besides the point. But even then, it's like, yeah, I got to kind of BS my way to act like I actually know who this guy is. I did a little bit of research, but it was just like, yeah, we're not going to have to worry about that. And so then when he was picked, it was just silence. It was like, okay, well, edge rusher's good, but and the other thing to remember, that was the moment when that pick was made. Bryce Huff knew he was going to be gone.
He's gone.
He knew right at that moment. And I think deep down, we probably all knew it as well, even if we didn't want to admit it.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't think we'd be so upset about it because honestly, I didn't think Huff would be able to sustain that level of efficiency in a larger role. As good as he was, I just thought that the reason he was able to be so good was because he was in and he knew for a fact that he wasn't going to be defending the run. And in fact, there were parts of his profile that indicated that. Michael Nania did an article showing that in the weeks where Huff played at least, I forgot what number of run snaps it was, his pressure rates went way down. And like, let's say for a lot of the middle of the season, because if you look at it for the first like 9 weeks of the season, he was like dominant, meaning in terms of pressure rates, and he was dominant. And then as the season went on, his pass rush win rate stayed the same if you look at PFF, but his pressure rates went way down until he had like 7 pressures against New England in the last week of the season. And I kept wondering why that was. Like I looked at it, I was watching the film, he didn't seem to be double teamed that much more. It didn't seem like anything happened. And then Michael found that it was because he was playing the run more, and probably just the fact that he had to account for the run made an impact. And that's not a knock on Huff. I think he's still a very good pass rusher. But the point is that the Jets really did maximize him by putting him in only in primary pass rushing situations. And so it's not like out of the realm of possibility that, again, I didn't realize that they were going to be able to give him 40% of the snaps and still keep him in primarily on pass rushing situations. But I wasn't entirely wrong in that idea that he might not be able to sustain his efficiency if he had to play the run also. We'll
see if Philly lives to treasure that deal or regret it. Essentially, it's like the Jets traded Huff and Uzama for Reddick is kind of what happened here. So yeah, I'll take my chances with Reddick. God bless Uzama. He's a great guy. He's a fine, upstanding human being, but. Oh gosh, yeah, that was one that I think his signing was the most befuddling signing that Joe Douglas has ever made, because they got Conklin at the same time. Okay, fine, but basically, I can understand the logic of bringing Uzama in off a Super Bowl, adding some leadership, but
the fact that he got more money than Conklin, it just made no sense. Like you look at their profiles, and Uzama was just like. Okay, maybe he was supposed to be a better run blocker than he was, but still, it was ridiculous.
The penalties were when he took a penalty, it was at the worst possible time. That was what was frustrating. Like they just had 2 or 3 touchdowns called back because of his penalties. Mm-hmm. So that was the stuff. Like I didn't expect him to become this great receiving tight end, but I figured be a good 2-way tight end, help establish the culture a little bit. And okay, I get it. This makes sense. Laken Tomlinson made all the sense in the world.
Yeah, no, that made sense. Okay.
So, yeah, that did too. But there have been very few, and I was like, what are we doing here? Because there were some with the previous GMs who were like, what is our idea? What is our goal? Yeah. What is our philosophy? How do we plan to win games? How do we plan to stay competitive in games? And why should people be paying money for PSLs to watch this?
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. Oh, hey, a quick hello to Billy SBC. Glad you're here. And Dane's here as well. Just want to give you guys some quick shout outs.
Sure. We'll get to the chat soon. It's not
okay.
I'm not 20 miles behind, so I'm keeping just keeping an eye on it.
Yeah. And remember the quote they said he's going. What did they say? He's going to enhance the Philadelphia offense.
He's gonna. I think it was Schefter or Rappaport who wrote. Yeah. Philadelphia adds a new playmaker or a new threat for their offense. It was something like that. We were cracking up.
Are we
Which is
counting
really
preseason
funny.
games here? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay. So I guess now, look, I personally, I had this. I think a few weeks ago, I had Robbie Sabo on, and I titled I titled the show, "Are the Jets getting an unfair rap in the media?" Because I feel like a lot around the league, most people aren't really giving, they're kind of poo-pooing the Jets, even with the Bills kind of, seemingly, in flux a little bit, even with Miami having lost their offensive line, their defensive coordinator, their best defensive tackle. People are still not really giving the Jets any credit. And I look at their roster and I say, barring, obviously it's a big if, but barring an injury essentially to Rodgers, like a catastrophic injury to Rodgers, there is no reason why this team should not be a very competitive team in the AFC East. Would you agree with that?
I'm hesitant to say yes, only because I feel like I'm setting myself up for the kill if I do. But if I'm looking realistically, I mean, you can never rule out Kansas City, no matter who. As long as number 15 is there and 87, I'll throw him in there as well. That offensive line, you can't rule anybody. You can never rule them out. Baltimore is always in the mix. Houston is on the rise, but there is a thing with this to me with Houston. There are a lot of teams, and you can go through just about any sport that you'd like, but football more than any other one, where a team has like an out of nowhere big time year. And I thought Houston would be okay. I didn't know they'd become what they become. But then how do they handle prosperity the next year? That is something we got to see. How does DeMeco Ryans handle it? How does CJ Stroud handle it? Because that has been an issue with a whole lot of teams. But if you look at talent, right on talent, yeah, to me, you could say that this is basically a 3-horse race for the AFC East. I thought Buffalo had a pretty good draft considering they did not have a first-round pick. They picked quite a few players that I did like. New England, to me, I just don't understand what their ideas are at this point. I mean, some of the picks that they made, I was like, where are they going with? Now, Drake May will make or break that draft. And there's some guys, Layden Robinson from Texas A&M. I thought that was a good pick for the O-line. But, I remember going into last year, it felt like there were 13 or 14 teams in the AFC that had a realistic chance of making the playoffs. It was very hard to rule anybody out. And everything gets all topsy-turvy and nothing makes sense. So it really is a week-by-week situation. But if you look at overall depth, talent, yes, I believe the Jets are up there. What I don't know yet, and what none of us know, how does Robert Saleh handle coaching big games in big spots? I don't doubt that he's a great communicator, that he's a good guy, not doubting any of that. And we've seen little glimpses of it. I thought he was a better in-game coach this year, believe it or not. But when it comes to calling a timeout, not calling a timeout, when to run, when to pass, when to get aggressive, when not to get aggressive, managing the clock. I think we as Jets fans have like PTSD with clock management, like going back to Herman Edwards when Dick Curl had to come in. We all remember this, right? When we had to bring in a clock management coach. I think Saleh has shown that he is, for the most part, good at that. The Detroit game 2 years ago, yeah, disaster, terrible. Even I was screaming at the TV in that moment, what are we doing right now? And he admitted it to himself. But I do think that he is a coach that learns as he goes, at least as far as in-game goes. But when it comes to those big moments, how will he handle it? That's my biggest question right now.
Absolutely. I mean, my thing with Saleh is I think he's still very much in the mindset of being conservative, run game, defense, things like that. And so a lot of times he won't take that chance because he'd be like, oh, I'm just going to rely on my defense. It's like, if you really trust your defense that much, you should be even more willing to go for it because you trust your defense to be able to hold them to a field goal, right?
Oh boy, this feels like Rex again, but
I mean, it's like he kind of, it just very, like he has that very conservative mindset. And then when it comes to, let's say, timeouts, like even these are all from 2022, but there was even, I remember against Minnesota, there was a choice of whether to punt or go for it or something. Like he also like whether to he challenged in a place where I was like, why? We've had it a few times where he challenges a 5-yard pass in the first quarter. Like, why are you doing that? So I feel like that's the kind of thing that could really hurt them in the season.
It would help if he had a competent quarterback somewhere along the way. I don't think he'd be relying on the defense so much if he didn't have Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, Chris Streveler, Joe Flacco before he became the reincarnated version of the Baltimore quarterback. Oh my God. But those guys, I think when you can't count on your offense when it's beat to hell, it's just completely beat down. Yeah, I can understand why, you put a little bit more emphasis on the defense. And, Brees wasn't even at full strength last year. He was still working his way back from the ACL injury. And now that Nathaniel Hackett finally knows how to use him, apparently.
Yeah, so ridiculous. I think that was the stupidest thing he said all year, and he said a lot of stupid things.
That's why I was terrified of Brock Bowers. I'm like, I know Bowers would have outlasted Hackett, but would Nathaniel Hackett ever know what to do with a Brock Bowers? If he didn't know what to do with Breece Hall, what would he be doing with Bowers?
Exactly. That's what I was afraid of. It was one of the many things. But I kind of feel that about Corley, but still Corley is at least just a regular receiver. So you can rely on him to do regular, receiver things, and they're more likely to use a receiver screen. Bowers, you kind of had to scheme up for more than Corley.
Behind the
line. Also not a first round pick.
But you know what I like the most about Corley? What was stuck out? His balance. You're not going to knock him down with one hit. Because the NFL is riddled with guys who are fast, who could run a deep route. We've had them on our team before. But you have to give Malachi Corley more than like a good shoulder block to send him down to the turf. He's not known as the Yak King just because he's a fast runner. He's smart, he's agile, he has good football instincts. And I think he's going to make an impact immediately on this offense. Yeah, that jersey's going to be selling fast.
You're not concerned that he's going to take him a little bit of time to ingratiate himself as well. I know what's going on now, where the whole thing where he's staying at Rodgers' house or whatever. But you don't think, just because it does seem to be a thing that Rodgers doesn't, like even let's say with Christian Watson, in the first week against Minnesota in 2022, Rodgers Watson's wide open, would have been a 75-yard touchdown. Watson drops it. And Rodgers stopped. Watson was hurt a lot, but Rodgers didn't really trust him. And then it took until like week 9 or 10 for him to start throwing to Watson, and then they started developing really good chemistry. So I just wonder if something like that might happen with Corley, where he takes a little bit of time to prove himself. You
still have, though, kind of a clean slate here. Because, Rodgers he's never thrown a complete pass to any New York Jet.
To anyone. It's true. He doesn't have his favorites.
We know he loves Garrett. Now, but then there's always that spot on who is going to take that next spot behind Garrett as the second. It could be Williams. It could be Corley. It could be Conklin. It could be Breece. The options are there. So I think Corley's going to have as fair a chance of anybody to be the second most targeted. That is actually going to be a fascinating thing. Like doing like season predictions, which I'm sure we're both going to do. Who is going to have the second most receptions on the Jets this year? Not that we have to answer it now, but I'm pretty sure we all think Garrett would be number 1, but who would be number 2? I think it's going to be interesting.
It's a very good question because last year my answer was Conklin. I thought Conklin would have the second most catches. But then this year it's very hard to know because, again, Breece had a ton of catches last year, and Rodgers loves to throw to the back. But Conklin at the same time, just that guy who can get open in short spaces and kind of like, and feed him the ball. Mike Williams, obviously, Mike Williams was getting a boatload of targets in I'm just looking at the chat.
I know.
Mike Williams was getting a boatload of targets in, last year in Los Angeles before he got hurt. And, Rodgers likes to throw those jump balls. So it could be any of them. It could be Corley, because he likes to throw those receiver screens. I think it's going to be whoever doesn't drop the ball.
I'm thinking about the drops. Well, we know Mike Williams does not drop the ball. His hands are like stone. It's like he has to stick them on his hands the entire time. And Conklin had such a weird year. He had his catches. He had his yards. He didn't have a single touchdown. Now, I'm not really blaming him for that because the Jets were never able to get into the red zone, for one thing. But, yeah, it was so strange. He had about as good a year as you could have, but he didn't without scoring a touchdown. I'm just
checking up how many touchdowns he has in his career. I think it might be a pattern with him that he's just maybe not that great in the red zone because he has 7 career touchdowns. He had 3 in 2022. Okay, so I guess he really only became a starter in 2021, and he had 3 in 2021, 3 in 2022, 2 in one game, and none last year. I think he's not like you think of the tight end as the big red zone threat. I think I haven't watched him a ton to see if he's open, but I think he may just not be that ideal
He's a field
red
stretcher.
zone
He's
threat.
not the
Yeah.
red zone target, is what he is.
Yeah.
He'll take you down the field a little bit, like a possession receiver. But he's not the type who's going to go up and out muscle somebody.
Yeah.
He's more about speed and agility. So that's like a different type of tight end.
Although he ran a 4.8.
There you go. But that's another reason why I like Williams so much is he could high point the ball. He could go up and bring that ball down. We didn't have that last year. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that I think Williams is going to be his favorite red zone target. Because okay. Let's get to some of the chat stuff over here. So this was before it even started. Hall and Allen will be unstoppable together. Throwing a little Isaiah Davis and Rodgers has the best run game he's ever had in his career. What do you think of that?
Hall and Allen, throwing Isaiah Davis and Rodgers. I can't remember every single running back that he's had, but I'll tell you what, that's a pretty dang effective running back room. And even if Izzy doesn't make, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets keep 4 running backs. It wouldn't shock me. I think Nick Bond is on his way out at this point. I think Ruckert would sort of step in as that blocking tight end, sort of in that H-back role. But I think one of the reasons why they drafted 2 running backs is you couldn't trust Abanikanda to do things like pass block. And we're in a situation, if you can't pass block, then it's going to be very hard for you, even as a running back, to get this job. So, and Davis and Allen are both very good at that. But I've already talked about, and I've been talking for weeks how much I like Braylon Allen. The only thing he really has to work on in my mind is his fumbling issues. He's had 9 in 3 years. But again, he's 20 years old. He's a kid. And we have a new running backs coach, which is not – so hopefully no more dust-ups on the sideline now that we changed the running back coach out. So I think that combination – Allen is the – I wanted Allen or I wanted Audric Estime from Notre Dame. Those are the 2 guys that I wanted. I wanted a bulldozer who could get that 3rd and 1 for us, and Allen is going to do it. So – I love this running back room right now.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I'm not 100% sure that Allen is going to beat out Davis for the number 2 back. I'll tell you why. Not because I think Davis is more dynamic. I don't. I think Allen is definitely a more dynamic back. I think Davis is more consistent right now. So he's more like your Curtis Martin type. The guy who's going to get you. You need 4 yards. He's going to get you 4 yards. Versus Allen, where he might get you a big run, but then on the next play he might lose 3 yards where he should have gained 2. So I wonder if the Jets, considering that Brees is a little bit more like that guy who sometimes is, looking to bounce it and could lose yard. I actually am in the middle of writing up an article about the Jets' short yardage situation, and Brees was pretty bad at that last year. Now, obviously, Brees is, again, a lot of it was the blocking and whatever, but still, even the advanced metrics were pretty bad on that. And so, and part of it is, I think, is because he's looking to bounce to find the hole as opposed to just pushing the pile forward. And so I think Davis might be better at that than Allen right now. I think, meaning, and a lot of that just has to do with willingness, meaning and what your mindset is. It's not even a matter of talent. It's just a matter of when the coach says to you, on this down, it's more important to us to get those few yards than for you to find a big hole and get a big gain.
I think I actually think you make a really good point there because Davis is more seasoned. He's more experienced than Allen is. So if that means he gets more runs early on, then because he was a very, very productive college running back. And like I said, Allen's only 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until next January. So, it might be a thing where you have to initiate him kind of slowly into the process. It might be a thing where, Jets fans are calling for him to get more playing time. You never know what might happen. But, I could see in the first year Davis having more rushes, and then it's a matter of watching Allen's development during his rookie season.
I mean, ultimately, I still think we're going to see a ton of Brees. And if there's one Jets player who I'm really excited to see this season, it's Brees Hall, because I think he is going to go off. We've seen him, you saw him, his 2 Denver games just kind of showed you like that big run, obviously Brees Lightning, his last run before his ACL tear. And then last year, his game against Denver. You see what he does when he has space to run. I mean, it's fun to watch. And he just didn't get enough of that last year.
Just get AVT and bubble wrap now, please.
Exactly.
I've got bubble wrap here from my move. I will donate it to One Jets Drive.
So it's funny you say that because I have this sort of thought exercise. It's like, which Jets injury prone players can they put in bubble wrap all season and still make the playoffs with? and believe it or not, I think the answer, Aaron Rodgers, is not a ridiculous answer to that question. Because I think they would have made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor last year.
You can make the argument. You could make.
I mean, look,
he could run a
if you
little
watch
bit.
him, look,
But,
I covered the Giants. I covered the Giants last year, and
yeah.
I watched the games that he played, and he played with just as bad of an offensive line as the Jets had. Okay, the Giants gave up 85 sacks last year, and he made their offense look competent. And mind you, he had fewer skill. I mean, the Giants have no number one receiver. Darren Waller went out in the same game he did. You know, they didn't really have much of anything. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He doesn't take a lot of sacks. I mean, sorry, he takes a lot of sacks. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot.
Right.
And there's not much more he was sort of the definition of a game manager in that sense, although he made a lot of, nice deep throws. But in terms of being able to get the ball moving, don't turn the ball over too much, get it, give your defense a breather. I think the Jets, I mean, I can't say for sure because their offensive line was so bad last year, but certainly in 2022, if they had Tyrod Taylor, they were making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't run. He doesn't have the mobility that he used to, but he knows what to do and what not to do. And like you said, not turning the ball over, that would have made a difference for sure. But,
my other player, I'm trying to think. There was another player I said who they could put in bubble wrap besides him. Well, I was even thinking this one was a little different. It was like, okay, like play Tyron Smith, again, it's like depending on who the edge rusher from the left side is going to be, give him every other week off or something. I'm kidding because obviously Fashanu is a rookie, but
just have him play the road games. Put Olu in for the home games. Let's do that.
Yeah. I actually still think, I don't know why, because once they signed Olu, you wouldn't think that they would sign, they drafted Olu. You didn't think. I still think they're going to sign Bakhtiari. I just think they're going to. I still think you're going to want
I saw your 53-man roster projection. I know.
Yeah, I just think that maybe as it gets closer to the season, I'll change my mind. But I just feel like he's going to want to play with Rodgers, and Douglas will say to him, if you're willing to take a minimum deal with incentives for playing time, then we'll do it.
It's a little bit hard for me to imagine now that they put Fashanu in there. I
hear it. I definitely hear it.
The interior offensive line. That's why I want the insurance. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. And I assume they're going to bring back McGovern. I mean, look, there are other options there. There are other guys out there. There's that guy whose first name I can't pronounce, that Vaitai guy who was on the Lions, who's had some injury issues, I think. But he was a pretty decent interior player. I don't know if he could play center, though. That's the only thing. That's the only thing with him. I think he's more of a guard. So
I know that. Well, yeah,
Glasgow.
This must be their backup guard because they had Glasgow and Jackson last year.
Yeah, but I think he was supposed to be he was their starter the previous year or something like that.
Okay.
So there's a few other guys out there who might be potential, but I just think the way I see it is McGovern is probably still can't pass a physical. So I assume that they're waiting until he can pass a physical and then they'll sign him. I mean, they signed him pretty late on, before the draft last year, but that's I heard someone say that about Bakhtiari, that, before the kind of that when we're thinking the Jets would sign him is that his health, it's like if he can't pass a physical, and McGovern got hurt in week 8 and it was a pretty nasty injury and he didn't have surgery until later in the season. So he's probably not really in a position to be able to pass one yet. So they probably can't even sign him yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his physical situation is right now, but to me, it makes all the sense in the world to bring him back. We know like LDT, he's done as a for instance, and hopefully we never have to see like Billy Turner ever again.
I think there are a couple other guys out there though. I'm just gonna look it up because I can't use over the cap because they seem to list guys who have already. They don't necessarily get it right away, but Spatrick seems to get it more quickly. Let's see, center. I mean, Wes Schweitzer is their backup center right now.
Right. Did Dalton Risner sign anywhere?
So he didn't, but he's a guard.
Okay, and Connor Williams, I think he's still coming back from an injury. I don't think he ever signed.
Let's see. Yeah, he didn't sign, but he's probably not even. Again, he's tore his ACL on December 12th, so I think he's probably not going to sign for a little while.
Yeah, I thought Risner would sign somewhere by now, though.
Yeah, well, he didn't sign until the season started last year. So let's see. There's Mason Cole. Yeah, no, these are centers. These guys are not that great. But let's see guards.
I take my chances with Schweitzer. I don't.
Yeah, mind. Andres Pete, who can play tackle and guard. Mark Lewinsky from the Giants. He's kind of whatever, but as a backup, he's not terrible.
We don't need Giants rejects on the offensive line. That's all I'm
fair
saying.
Enough. I mean, look, I don't think Greg Van Roten has signed anywhere.
Oakland didn't want to keep that talent there? Okay. He actually became okay over there. He became competent, amazingly enough.
But again, that was one of the things, it was interesting. Michael Nanny had been talking about how, when you look at offensive linemen, if they suddenly became so much better, you have questions about that. And so, or if they play in a scheme that's very friendly to players. So, for example, when Robert Hunt got a 5-year, $100 million deal with Carolina, we're like, are you nuts? Miami gets the ball out in 2 seconds flat play. Their offensive linemen don't have to do very much. So I would not be, necessarily trust him. And it was interesting. Then we saw there was someone who had put out a chart. This was actually fascinating. There was a chart, and I wish I need to get a hold of it. It was comparing the difficulty of the offensive lineman's assignment to their either PFF grade or to their win rates or whatever. And they showed that Robert Hunt had among the easiest assignments of any offensive lineman in football last year. And I'm assuming when they're talking about ease of assignment, they're talking about the quality. I don't know about the quality of player, but certainly how often you had help versus going one-on-one, and how quickly your quarterback, how many true pass sets you had, how quickly the quarterback got the ball out. So when you have someone like that was Robert Hunt. Greg Van Roten, it was like he went into a situation where suddenly like 4 of their offensive linemen had career years. So you're like, okay, I think that might have to do with something more than just Greg Van Roten suddenly becoming a competent player again.
Okay, well, we'll find out if he does actually get a job and what winds up happening. But somebody will sign him at some point.
I'm surprised the Giants didn't. They got the offensive line coach. They signed a Luminor. Why wouldn't they take Van Roten?
Oh, they just signed a Luminor. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Let's see. Don't forget the extended run game with sweeps and short throws to Corley. Yep, the yak.
There you go, Alan. It's a good idea.
Yep, they're going to do a lot of that. Hey, Alan. Evening. Alan says you graduated the same year. I was born 4 years earlier.
There you go. Wow.
I was 4 years old. I was born in 1995.
I'm still fooling people. They're like, when I tell them that my age starts with a 4, they're stunned. So.
Well, you definitely do not look that.
Which doesn't make sense. I'm a Jet fan. This doesn't make any sense.
Let's see.
I did get some pool time this weekend, I will admit. So I do feel a little good about that.
So let's see. If you have to choose between, okay, so this thing will not stay in my ear. Sorry about this. But if you have to choose between MC2 and Reed, you'll go MC2. Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah. Obviously, but you keeping both would be optimal. I think the only way they keep both is if Reed gives them a bit of a hometown discount. Meaning, look, he's signed for $11 million now. What's the going rate for a typical starting cornerback?
A little more than that.
I imagine it's probably 15, 16 million by now.
15. I think 15 more than fair. And we got a cornerback another cornerback. What's his name?
Exactly. Who's going to double that?
Might make a little more than $15 million a year.
Exactly. So the only way I could see them re-signing Reed is if he gave them a 2-year deal at a discount. Like if you gave him 2 years, $20 million, I could see them doing something like that. But he's not going to do that because he could get a full starter's money on the market, and it's his last big contract.
It always comes back to the guaranteed money. Like if they did 2 years, 25, I'd be good with that. But then if you guaranteed like 15, 16, something like that, I could go for that, like $12.5 million. I think a little raise with a little security, I would do that. But we know Joe Douglas will say, here's what we're willing to offer. This is our offer. If you don't like it, shop around. We'll be here.
Yeah,
and
so
I think that's more than fair because it is a business, and with the guys we have to Breeze, Garrett, JJ. Yes, we should be signing Breeze at this point because he's a special one. Sauce also, so decisions are going to have to be made, and some of the guys sometimes this hurts, but again, that's what the best teams do. They develop players, step in, and we have a secondary coach, Tony, who knows what he's doing. He's good. I got confidence he could develop a new cornerback. And again, we could always draft one next year. Remember, we got an extra 3rd-round pick, got an extra 6th-round pick. We can move up if we need to.
Absolutely. And so I have an interesting thing about DJ Reed. I remember watching, I had just joined JetX, and I was watching Joe Blewett's review, his full, 2-hour review of DJ Reed. And one thing he said about Reed is that he relies a lot on his speed, and that as his speed starts to wane, as he gets older, he's one of those guys who could go downhill very quickly. Whereas a guy like Sauce, as athletic as he is, and obviously he relies on his makeup speed because he's also so smart, and not to say that Reed's not smart, but because he has better technique than Reed, he could probably keep it on a little longer. Now, on the flip side, you have a guy like Darrelle Revis who, had the technique but not the speed and still fall off very rapidly. But still, Reed, I think he's going to turn 28 this year. You talk about it, talking 29, 30. I mean, he could start, falling off a cliff. And that's another reason why I wouldn't want to give him a 3-year contract at the going rate for cornerbacks.
Or an easy opt-out after 2. You could give him a 3-year deal, but you have to get out.
But meaning you have to be able to get out of it. And again, as you said, it has to be a little bit of a raise, but not more than that.
Right.
Because again,
one thing we've learned with these contracts, there's all kinds of loopholes. There's all kinds of ways out.
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
like we just talk like baseball. Okay, 8 years, $120 million. Everything we know is guaranteed. There's all these little caveats.
Yeah, no, but the other thing I would say is with Sauce is I would absolutely pay him after the season. It's the first year you can pay him because you give him an extension. It's just going to get more expensive. The markets are shooting up for everything. Just give him a contract. I mean, he might choose to go otherwise. He might choose to wait it out because he knows he could get more money.
And thankfully the cap is still growing. So, I mean, that's fine. It's like, I want $20 million. Great. Cap's going up. It's not about how much money you're paying. It's what percentage of the cap is this player taking up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so next year I would go, I mean, again, remember, it's an extension. It doesn't take effect immediately. You're not wiping out his previous deal. So you give him, he would still play his 4th year on a cheap, on the first round rookie deal. And then, the extension kicks in. Usually the first year of an extension, they keep the cap hit low. And so that's what I would do with Sauce. I'm not as sure about Garrett because I feel like Garrett is not going to be the top paid receiver in the NFL. Unless he has, look, if he goes off for 1,500 yards this year, like he certainly could, different story. But the Garrett we know right now, as good as he is, he's not quite, as elite at his position as Sauce.
He's not making $30 million a year.
No, he's not going to be. He's going to get 25 like Devontae. He'll get a Devontae Smith range. But I feel like if he's not that elite receiver, I would not be as concerned about waiting another year to pay him. Although, look, receiver contracts keep going up, so maybe it's worth doing it anyway. But so if there's one guy, I think they have to they don't usually do it after the 3rd year, but I would do it with Sauce.
Wow. I'm actually looking at the, we'll get to that chat a little bit later. Yeah. Keep up. Yeah. I just saw some interesting things about the cap situation for this year, but we'll
okay. We'll get this. Let's see. It's hard to worry about the defense when the coaching has proven to be able to develop and build players into competency. Absolutely.
Yep. Daniel, you said it all with that comment. Well said.
Absolutely. I want to think of the Jets as a 2-lane b-ball squad from the 90s. We are deep. We can create a new culture of rotisserie. Everyone's healthy in January. Thoughts? My thoughts are I am like praying to God that everyone's healthy in January. That's all I can say.
Yeti, do you think that we're experts on the 2-lane basketball squad from the 90s? I barely know that they're the Green Wave, and the only reason I do is because I watch Michael Pratt highlights. But yes, the idea of rotisserie, yes, I'm totally on board with that. Healthy enough to play, that would be very nice. As we're stating the obvious.
Because people keep talking about injuries, the obvious candidates, but if Quinnen or Sauce goes down, the Jets are in pretty hot water anyway.
Oh, don't even say it. Oh,
yeah, I know. Every time Sauce comes up limping or Quinnen is down for an extra second, I'm like literally saying prayers.
Oh, the pain is real. Yep. Well, we've seen it with Brees twice a time already. So
Oh, that was awful. It didn't look like such a bad injury on the field. Yeah, AVT.
Right. I didn't notice that, and AVT, I didn't really notice it either. It was like it came out like the next day, and when that happened, the run game went to hell. But I'm glad
AVT. When I saw him go off with his, I didn't know what it meant. And then when Saleh said, Saleh said with Brees, he said right away they're concerned that it's the worst, that it's the ACL. With AVT said he'll be evaluated tomorrow. When he almost seemed like he was avoiding the question, I knew it was bad. And then when he said it was, I was not surprised at all.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking. But I'm very glad they picked up the 5th-year option. And to think, I mean, it was $15.3 million. But if he had made one Pro Bowl, which I think was a very possible situation if he didn't get hurt, it would have been that contract option would have been $19 million. That actually saved the Jets some money because he got hurt.
But the same token, then now they're taking a risk that he's going to be healthy. Right. The one thing I would say is I wish, I had written an article suggesting that they did like a Jordan Love style deal with him where they give him a 2-year extension. 2-year deal, meaning wipe out the 4th year and give him for a deal for the 4th and 5th year, sort of split the difference between the 2 contracts and then let him earn back the rest of the money for the 5th year if he hits certain, with escalators, meaning if he plays X number of snaps, he earns this amount of money. And so he could earn back the 5th year option, but only if he played. But it would have given him more money up front, because Love signed that kind of deal instead of taking his 5th-year option. So I was wondering if they ultimately just picked up his option and everything was fine. But I was just curious if they could do something like that to give themselves a little bit of insurance in case he got hurt.
Doesn't sound like they're ready to do that just yet, but I'm glad they're going to try to keep him in one position. Although personally, I like him at left guard, but
me too. Me too.
I would, but beggars can't. If he plays 17 games, then who are we to complain what position he's playing?
The only thing I will say is if, for example, let's say they had some injuries at tackle, I would prefer to see AVT at tackle over Carter Warren.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, I'll give Warren a year, but I think Max Mitchell is not long for this team.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, but I think they would put Fashanu at tackle before.
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. It would be Fashanu first, but I mean, okay, we're fine. We're not even talking. We have to go.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't want to go.
Yeah,
any further
but I'm talking. When you've watched this team the last 2 years, people talk about last year, but 2022 was not great either.
Remember when
way out?
Rivka, do you remember a couple of years ago we went through about 9 safeties in 1 year? We thought that was a nightmare. After the last 2 years with the offensive line, oh my Lord.
I mean, last year was something different, though. It was like literally every position. It was unbelievable.
If you ever go on Sporkle, the website where you could do these quizzes about whatever topic.
Yeah.
That should be the quiz. Name every offensive lineman the Jets used in 2023.
Exactly. Oh my God. I don't know if I could do it and I cover them.
I wouldn't want to. I'd have to get drunk to do that quiz.
Okay. Obviously, they weren't going to take a tight end in the first round, not after the last few seasons with a low line. I don't think there's anything so obviously about it. I mean, because even Douglas, again, Connor Hughes reported that the Jets weren't interested, and it was just a smokescreen. But Douglas said that they had some decisions to make. I think they were considering Bowers.
I think it was an option. I mean, we know they were looking at Michael Mayer the previous year. Mm-hmm. And to me, that would have been a bit of a luxury pick. I mean, I like Mayer, don't get me wrong, but when you have the pieces that you already have, it's like, really? If you're going to do that, that's got to be a heck of a difference maker. Because, I mean, we talk about first-round quarterback busts, but tight end, that's like the only position that's worse. I mean, God bless Kyle Pitts, but here's what I think we're really learning. You can have all the talent in the world, but you got to go to an organization that knows how to utilize your talents. Would Lamar Jackson had been anything like what he is if he went to almost any other organization besides Baltimore?
Probably not.
No, he wouldn't have. If he went to the Jets, he would be an MVP, 2-time MVP. You kidding? No shot that would have happened. But maybe tight ends have something to do with that also, because the guy was playing with frickin' Desmond Ridder as quarterback. I mean, come on.
I think Pitts
Boyle would beat him out.
I think that Pitts will have a much better year this year. I think that Desmond Ridder, Drake London will also. I think both of those guys have been undersold by their quarterback play and just the head coach who insisted on running the ball at all costs.
What was your reaction when you heard that the Falcons had drafted Penix?
So I saw someone say it later in the thing. When I was like, "What on earth are they thinking? Like, what was that?"
This is the stuff the Raiders do.
Exactly. And
offense is loaded. I mean,
look again. If you were going to take a quarterback, even the quarterback, even if you like Penix, he's 24. It just doesn't line up. But also, you just paid. If you thought you wanted Penix, you knew he was going to be available at 8. Why did you sign Kirk Cousins?
I know when you have an opportunity to get the quarterback, you take the quarterback. But you talk about buyer's remorse from Kirk Cousins. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he moved his whole family down to everything, and he thought he was all psyched up.
Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. I say the only three good things to come out of Atlanta are Coca-Cola, Sweetwater beer, and Martin Luther King. That's it.
Yeah, certainly not the Braves.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Dane. Philly signs Uzama, and I'm like, what? Yep. I mean, okay, Philly, go ahead, enjoy Uzama.
Somebody had to sign him, I guess. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, kind of. I'm sure that, it's funny. I'm very curious to see how Mekhi Becton does with them if he ends up on the field.
Oh, yeah, Becton as well. So now that makes it even better. It's Becton, Uzama, and Hupferedic.
Yeah.
Basically what it is.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Jets are going to win the division for the first time in 22 years. They certainly have the best shot since before Tom Brady was quarterback.
Well, there was the year when they should have won it the year that Favre was there.
Yeah. Oh, that was miserable. Oh God, that was so bad.
7 freaking Pro Bowlers on that team. That was like what I dealt with some bad years, but that was the year I was like, how in the world did they blow?
Exactly.
I remember losing that one game to Seattle, where Favre is just throwing interceptions. Like he's like facing like the sideline is this way, and he's like literally like his body's facing this way. And he's throwing his body.
Yeah.
And we didn't send one blitz. This is when me and Jeannie was coach, and we don't send one blitz. Seattle's playing 5 backup offensive linemen.
I know.
Walter Jones was nowhere to be found, and we couldn't even get near Seneca Wallace that game.
Seneca Wallace, that's the other thing.
It was like Seneca Wallace.
Ridiculous. Oh my God. I think I've wiped a lot of that. I mean, I was also how old was I? 2008, so I was 13. But I think I've wiped a lot of that out of my memory that season. I do remember throwing snowballs at Seattle fans and stuff like that. And then Chad Pennington. And then, like, to put, like, the icing on top of the shame was Chad Pennington beating us in the last week of the season.
The only thing about that, the reason that didn't hurt as much is because that was a later game. And with the earlier game, I think with Baltimore winning, the Jets were already eliminated when that game began.
I had forgotten about that. Okay.
But I
think they could have kicked Miami out of the playoffs, though.
Probably could have. Chad was my guy. Chad always will be.
I love Chad. He was my quarterback.
I didn't even hate it. It was just like, you know what?
I was just mad. I was just mad. I hate Miami.
Yeah. The Dolphins deserve what they got, and the Jets deserved what they got for the way that they blew it leading up to that game.
True. Okay, so Johnny said hi.
Johnny Jimenez, the great Johnny Jimenez himself.
Oh, Johnny changed his name to Johnny Boy?
Apparently.
Okay, hi, Johnny.
You realize you have to go through an application process with all of us in order to change your name?
Let's see. Seems very likely that they'll win the division, maybe in a first-round bye. Okay, I think a first-round bye is pushing it. Although I have to say, the Jets' schedule, according to a lot of the things, is like the 3rd or 4th easiest in football this year.
Let's get a home playoff game.
Exactly.
Start there. Yeah, because that'd be a pretty good place to start.
So you said I'm just focused on division for now. A bye would be incredible, obviously, but Flacco just shows how bad the Jets line really was. Yes and no, because look, honestly, I watched, Flacco all throughout his resurgence and whatever. I don't know. For some reason, it just didn't bother me that much. Like, you were like, oh, Joe Flacco and comeback player of the year and all that. I was like, okay, come on. Like, I don't know. I guess I just didn't think he played that well, or just, I don't know.
I thought he played fine. I mean, Cleveland has an excellent offensive line. With some of the guys they have there, they got several Pro Bowlers.
But they were missing both their starting tackles.
Antonio Teller, right? I mean, they're missing a few players, but if you put Flacco with that Jet offense, he wasn't going to do anything. He wasn't going to change this offense. So I didn't have any issues with them not going out and getting Joe Flacco.
Yeah, he wasn't going to do anything different. I think all these people say, "Oh, the Jets are signed." He was going nowhere with the Jets.
That's the thing. I mean, the line was so big. It's like, what quarterback that they could have acquired was going to go out and change it? I mean,
does anyone remember Joe Flacco coming in for one drive for Mike White against Buffalo and fumbling the football?
See, that's what I've erased from my mind. See,
yeah, it was last year. It was, in 2022. He came in the first time White got hit. He went out for a few plays, and Flacco fumbled.
Is this after Matt Milano basically speared Mike White into oblivion and broke his ribs?
I think that was actually before. I think White came back in and then broke his ribs.
I have no love for Matt Milano, I will tell you that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
When he got hurt, I was not shedding a tear. I will.
Nor was I. Okay, let's see. It's hard to go for it when you're awful on every aspect of offensive football. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it could be that this year is the first year that we're ever going to see Saleh really coach, because he never had an offense that he could trust to get a yard when he needed it.
Yeah, pretty well said. I mean, we were historically bad, like 40 years, the worst red zone offense and the worst third down offense. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good indication.
So, I mean, it's hard to coach with any sort of, forward thinking anything when that's going on. Okay. Corley's a train. Yep. Corley was my favorite player in the draft. Nice. I guess my only thing is but again, you're not really going to get it in the 3rd round. My only thing is maybe I would want a guy who has a little bit more of a complete route tree, but every guy in the 3rd round is going to have their developmental aspects. So I guess if you have a guy with an elite skill who has some more deep route running ability than people seem to know about. And, it's a good start.
You have different types of receivers, and I mean, I'm not going to say I like Corley over Harrison. That might be pushing it a little bit. Yeah, but I mean, you could have this quote unquote limited route tree, but as long as the ones you run, you're running effectively. You might only have like 3 moves, but if you run them well enough, I mean, and you have other.
But I'm more willing to take that in the 3rd round than I am in the 1st round. That was one of my issues with Bowers is just like I really want a guy who really runs routes if I'm taking him in the 1st round, and Bowers did most of the same things that Corley did.
Right, because Bowers was not a deep threat.
Yeah, so
as of yet, anyway.
Yeah, so I just I'm more comfortable taking, and I think I even wrote that actually at one point. I said not to take Bowers. I said when you could get Corley in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I did like a 45-minute break. I did my breakdown on Bowers as well, and I was like, this is really tough for me to justify the number 10 pick on him. I mean, I like him, great athlete, but I'm not sure that this is a fit for the Jets right now.
The comparisons to Kelsey and and Gronkowski made no sense. Kelsey's an elite route runner. I mean, he could become that, but he's not. And to take a tight end with all that history of, I'm just glad they didn't take Bowers just so we don't have to fight about it anymore.
That's actually, I would say that's fair. I mean, I look at him, I see like Evan Ingram, or
That's exactly the player that I kept saying. And Evan Ingram's a good player, but ultimately, does he move the needle for your team? Like,
no, he could be a very useful piece, but he's not the focal point of that offense.
It took him 4 or 5 years for him to actually figure it out.
Right. If I'm drafting like if I'm drafting a tight end number 10 overall, he better be Kelsey or Gonzalez or Gronk.
And he better be that pretty quickly
Kittle,
too.
Maybe George Kittle.
Kittle, but he has to be Kittle pretty early on. Not that in the last year of his rookie deal, and we're debating whether to pick up his 5th-year option.
That's exactly right, because the Jets are not the Panthers here. So
exactly.
Yes.
So that's that on Bowers. So with Rodgers here, Hackett is irrelevant. Then he says,
pray
Hackett is the real Mr. Irrelevant.
Whoa. Woo.
Let's see. Hackett is here because any other real OC would want things his way, and that would start to conflict with Rodgers. Hackett knows who the boss is. It's true, but look, Adam Gase worked with Peyton Manning.
The mirror images of one another. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all we have to say.
Yeah, exactly. Not Jalen Key as the Mr. Irrelevant. We know that they also have a UDFA safety named Jaden Key, right?
Jalen Key is
Jalen Key is Mr. Irrelevant, and then they have a UDFA safety named Jaden Key who's in camp. So if they saw,
where'd he go to school?
Let's check this up. I think he was a rookie tryout. I think he Jaden Key safety. Let's see.
All right, I'll try this. It may buffer me for a minute. But
no, this came out Jalen Key, not Jaden Key.
Oh, Pennsylvania.
Penn.
Yeah, he's a Quaker. Okay.
Yeah.
Jalen Key. Well, Joe Douglas.
Whoever works. I mean, look, ultimately, I think a UDFA has just as good of a chance of making a roster as a 7th-round pick for the most part.
More than ever. Yeah. Every year.
Meaning, I think the Jets treat them the same way. And I think this year we might. I don't think he's going to make the roster because I just don't. I think he's a Jag. I do think Quantas Stiggers is going to make the roster, and then I suspect that their UDFA is probably going to be either and maybe possibly both of Taylor and McGregor. Yeah. If I had to guess.
I never thought the Jets would wait till the 7th round to get a safety.
I didn't either.
That was my biggest surprise.
They just really don't care about the position. They don't. They love Tony Adams, but they also don't care about it.
I would have bet, like if somebody was to ask me if you had to bet on one player the Jets draft past the 1st round, who'd the player bet? I would have said Jaden Hicks. Safety from
I thought so too. I really did think so too.
Great fit. There were projections he was going middle of the 2nd round at one point, and he really dropped. But it didn't quite work out.
They just don't care about safeties. I think they think, and look, to a large extent, who can blame them? They've had an elite defense the last 2 years with Jordan Whitehead out there, which means they can clearly hide their safety.
No, that's true. Safeties are like the running backs of defense or something.
Not for every team, but I mean, for the Jets, it seems like, look, they managed with LaMarcus Joyner and Whitehead out there in 22. And then last year, I mean, Adams was, I would say, probably a little below average. He certainly wasn't good. He missed too many tackles.
But he can make plays well.
He made plays in the run game. He's, he can cover tight ends sometimes. So, he was okay. Adams,
This
I would say,
was
was okay. And for a UDFA, he did an excellent job.
Right.
But and look, I love Chuck Clark. If he, but just the question is what he's going to look like after tearing his ACL. Now he's had a full cycle to recover because he tore it in OTAs last year. But I happen to like Chuck Clark, and I think if he can play anything like he did in Baltimore, that's an automatic upgrade. But I'm just concerned that my main concern, look, I like Ashton Davis, but which were words I never thought a year ago would ever come out of my mouth, because I used to say I hated Ashton Davis. I wrote all the time, I don't know what he's doing on this roster.
Most of us did.
Yeah, but then look, I thought he did a good job in the role they gave him last year, but they gave him a very specific role, which was in the box only. I don't think they played him mostly as a box linebacker, like the sub third linebacker in big nickel. I don't want him playing free safety. I don't want him playing deep. And therefore, if something happened to Adams, he would probably end up, or if to either of them really, he would end up playing deep, and that concerns me. And that, unless they think JBC can be a decent backup, I really just want to see someone else in that room with some experience, just so that Ashton Davis is not the guy going back there.
Justin Simmons?
Simmons statistically was not great last year, and so I didn't want to pay him a lot of money. I don't want to give him, the money that might be worthy for a guy with that kind of reputation. And I don't think the Jets will either, just because they don't pay safeties. I wouldn't complain about it, certainly. I think it would be a good ad. I mean, I assume Simmons would push Adams to the bench, or at least to the third safety role.
Very possibly. I mean, I probably like Adams as much as I like any safety in this room right now. But I mean, I'll tell you one thing about Ashton Davis. When he gets his hands on the football, he doesn't drop it. And I can't say that about some of the cornerbacks we have on this team.
Absolutely. I was looking at it, actually. I think the Jets last year had the second most dropped interceptions in the league.
I can absolutely picture that. Oh, and they're probably towards the top in interceptions being called back because of a stupid penalty.
Oh, that too.
In the stands.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. This is
I said it. Come after me.
Yeah. Let's go down a little bit. This one, if Williams stays, so it's funny. What do you said you think Williams will be okay? I think he will be too. He tore his ACL in week 3.
It was like September. It was early.
So they keep saying Saleh said he's on the Brees timeline. I was like, he tore his ACL a full month before Brees did. He shouldn't be on the same exact timeline. Maybe I'm wrong, and it could be also that it hurts a receiver more than a running back. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think if anything, it's about the same. Now Williams is older, it's true, but I think look, I'm excited to see what's going to go on there. I think Williams will take a lot of targets because every time if look, they're going to have to man up one of those guys, either Wilson or Williams. They're not going to be able to double both. And if he sees one of those guys. Certainly, if he sees a guy with off coverage, he's just going to dump it to them. Like, Williams last year, one of the reasons he started getting a lot of targets is because they started throwing hitches to him because teams, they would give him a cushion because they knew he liked to run deep routes. So he would just run a hitch and he would catch a ball all the time. I could see, even though Rodgers doesn't throw as many hitches as maybe some other receivers, as some other quarterbacks, I could see him, he sees off coverage on Williams, he just dumps it to him all the time.
My thing with Williams, my concern is if he does go down, there's no other receiver who can do what he does on this roster.
No.
That's
and you at that point you just be praying that Lazard somehow recaptured his his contested catch, somewhat ability, whatever he had.
If Williams goes down, then please bring back Corey Davis for a year.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's kind of the reason that I wanted Corey Davis. As I said, it gives Williams a chance to work his way back into the roster slowly. You still have a big-bodied guy. You have a guy who's a really good blocker. Who can, he's never been a great contested catch guy, but in the intermediate area of the field, he does a decent, on digs
he's
and things like that. He's better in
the slot. That's what people don't
he
realize.
He is, and they never really got to put him there.
Right. When he had to go against like Pat Surtain in Denver, he didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
And Surtain's really good anyway. But you use those players in the best chance they have to succeed. And even though Davis has size, he has a good combination of speed and size. And, he can win those high spots when he's in the slot. And I don't think he was using that role enough when he was with the Jets.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this comment. Corley would be Jordan Whitehead's worst enemy. Just imagine it. Literally, just imagine it. Imagine him versus Jordan Whitehead one-on-one.
Oh, I'm so sorry we don't have Tampa Bay on the schedule this year.
And this one, Jordan Whitehead would just miss Corley. Exactly.
Great minds think alike, obviously.
Let's see. What do you think of Robbie Anderson? Keep Chosen Anderson as far away from this team as you possibly can. The guy hasn't been good since he was on the Jets. He could only run a 9 route anyway, but when he was on the Jets, at least he could run it well. He hasn't done it well since, and the guy's just a head case and a distraction.
You know, we all know the video at this point when the guy walks up to with his key card up to the door of one Jets drive and he can't get in.
Exactly.
That's Robbie Anderson in my mind.
Yeah.
He wants back, but he ain't coming back.
Yeah, this is another one. He'd just throw his shoulder into him and drop to the ground, and Corley would just run past him. I don't even know if Corley would like stumble or anything. I think he'd just go like right shoulder him, right head like falls aside. Yeah, he falls right aside. Yeah, Davis and Allen could both stiff arm like a beast. Yeah, so that was one thing. One of the reasons the Jets signed these guys is they're both bruisers. They're not going down on first contact.
Yep. And that's a whole thing, adding toughness to the rim. Corley, same principle.
Exactly. I mean, that's what they went for this offseason. If there's one theme of their offensive additions on the offensive line and the running back room receiver, it was all just, not Fashanu as much, but like Morgan Moses, John Simpson, like they were adding like real, like they want to just, they just want to run the ball down people's throats, and they just want to bully people.
About time. About time. I'm game because, great as Rodgers is, he won't have to feel like he has to carry the entire load. And, he always seems to have like a good power running back on his team. Very often I feel like he's had that in Green Bay most of the time. Or at least he has a fullback. John Koo, we all know how much he loved him.
I just don't think Bowden's good enough to
I was a Bowden guy for a while, like if nothing else for special teams, but the guy they don't put him in the games. He would play.
They used him like 4 times a game. Now, Robbie Sabo pointed out that one of the reasons for that is just because they didn't really have many options because they were always losing. So you have to play a lot more.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you can't block, shouldn't I put somebody in the game who actually might be able to help with that a little bit, especially if you want to run the ball with Breece Hall? It was just I figured it made more sense to play him a little bit rather than put some other indispensable stiff wide receiver who's going to be playing in the UFL next week.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we don't talk about ACL or Achilles tears. Okay, I'll keep it quiet. Let's see. Nah, it wouldn't matter who the QB was last season. Taylor made a little difference in that. I don't necessarily disagree, so that's why I corrected myself and I kind of said in 2022. Meaning even with you, because you saw how Mike White played. If Mike White hadn't been injured in that Seattle game, it might have been a different story. You saw, he still made it work even with a very bad offensive line. I think Taylor could have made it work in those enough to win a few games down the stretch and make the playoffs. That's the one concern is the injuries, and it's true. But the only thing is that Taylor tended to take concussions because he was running more. I mean, he got hurt on a run again. Did he get hurt? He got hurt on a run against the Jets. He got hit from behind, right? Yeah, and so. Whereas Mike White got hurt because he had an endless wind up. He just took too long to release the ball.
Yeah, he got speared like Roman Reigns. It was crazy.
Yeah, so I got absolutely torn apart for making this point. I made a little bit of a different point last year, but I said that the Jets offensive line stunk before the injuries, and that was apparently a big no to say. It's absolutely true. People keep saying that the Jets were done when Rodgers went down, and that it's true to a large extent. The ceiling of the season was done once Rodgers went down. But if AVT had stayed healthy last year, they probably still, and if they didn't have the offensive line injuries, I can't say for sure, but they might have been able to make the playoffs. They might have.
I mean, who are the tackles of it? Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton? I mean, it
was bad. It was bad. It was really bad. But look, until AVT got hurt, their offense was somehow plodding along.
Yeah. I mean, and Timmons didn't even play the first 2 weeks either. He had to work his way into the lineup also. So, yeah, we never really saw whatever the optimal offensive line would have been with the Jets. We didn't really get to see it all that much, if ever. Yeah. Then again, an optimal offensive line last year, how much is that really worth?
Yep. Let's see. Even with a fully healthy Rodgers, still would have been 7-10. Just games would have been closer. I don't know about 7-10, but
we did win 7. So
but I do agree that I don't think people act like, oh, Rodgers' injury, they would have won the Super Bowl. Like behind that offensive line, they were going nowhere.
It was going to be a challenge. I put it this, Micah Parsons still would have done what he wound up doing. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that was ridiculous. The thing that Hackett didn't leave in health.
Rodgers did not have to deal with that.
Exactly. If he hadn't gotten hurt the previous week, he was going to get killed that week.
Watching that game with like 12 freaking Cowboys fans at the next table. Oh, my God.
That's
Oh, painful.
terrible.
So
Let's see. Okay, they haven't signed McGovern, so I'm thinking maybe it isn't coming along that fast. Look, he got hurt in week 8. Guys who get hurt in week 8 and have knee surgery are usually not going to be able to pass a physical at this point in the off season. So I wouldn't be all that surprised. Is it possible that he's too injured and the Jets sign a different interior offensive lineman instead of him? Yes, that's possible.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I try not to dig too much into this. I mean, when a player gets cleared, he gets cleared, and but again, the season doesn't start for 4 months anyway. So
they're gonna sign someone. Obviously, they know that that was clearly their plan when they didn't draft someone.
Right. Yeah, and there's always some guys who don't sign until after the draft because they want to see what their opportunities are going to be. Mm-hmm. So McGovern's just one of those types. Who do you sign? Well, yeah, I guess we kind of addressed this a little bit. It really comes down to how do you define a number 2 wide receiver. So to me, when you look at what's on this roster, it's got to be Corley. I mean, I can't trust Lazard at this point, even though I would say he'll be better than he was last year. But one, he's playing with Rodgers, and 2, how could he be worse than he was last year between the drops, the penalties, everything that he did? I mean, yeah, everything was horrible. But then you have a lot of unknowns between Gibson, Brownlee, guys like that. Irv Charles, I think of him more as a special teams player. But, they kept those receivers around, but they all got their chances. Even Malik Taylor. Everybody remember Malik Taylor? Malik with 2 A's, yes. But we were waiting to see which one of these guys would really emerge, and they flashed once in a while, but none of them gave me the confidence that these are going to be long-term wide receivers on this team. So to me, Corley is definitely your number 2 wide receiver.
So the thing is, I think he's asking specifically like the Z receiver, like the number 2 outside, and I just don't think that Corley's going to play there. He played 90% of his reps in the slot in college. So he'll play more outside than with the Jets than he did in college, just because the Jets like to use Garrett Wilson in the slot at times. But in that sense, in 11 personnel, who would be your other starting outside receiver? It would have to be Lazard, and that's one of the reasons I would want to sign Corey Davis, is just to get Lazard out of that spot.
I'll go to a 2 running back, 2 tight end, 1 receiver offense. Can we do that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my plan.
Yep. Okay, let's see. As Jets fans, if all goes well and no injuries occur, are we spending any more on free agents or extensions, or is this team the team until players shake loose after the preseason? Far projecting, I know. So we discussed it a little bit, right? You said, interior offensive line, they're definitely signing someone.
Yeah, and so a couple of things that are interesting about the cap. So according to Over the Cap, Jets have $9 million in space right now, but of course they do have to sign the draft class. So
what's their effective cap space?
Yeah, it doesn't say what about effective cap space, but right now team cap space is $9 million.
So right over here, if you go to over the cap and you click on cap space, it lists the order of cap space, and then the next column it says effective cap space. So they have the Jets with $5 million in effective cap space, which generally would include the draft picks.
Okay. All right. So that makes a difference. But what's amazing is we have only 5 players on the team this year with cap hits of over $10 million. That's it. Wow. It's amazing. Quinnen's at 20. I'm just rounding off. Quinnen at 20. Rodgers at 17. DJ at 15. Reddick at 15. And everybody, make sure you're sitting down. Hold on to like a stable object. Alan Lazard at 12.
Oh, Lord.
How did that happen?
Oh, my God.
My God.
Look, I have to say, I did not want them to sign Lazard, and I have the receipts to prove it. You can check my articles. I did not want Lazard, but even I did not think he would be that bad.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did. And we talked about the dead money, and yeah, this is the worst that it's been, but it's not going to last long. They have $52 million.
Yeah, it's like 20% of their cap.
Right. So that's right. That's a big part of it. But it's guys like Tomlinson, JFM, Zach Wilson, CJ, Lawson, Brown, Whitehead, McCole Hardman. We still got to pay McCole Hardman $2 million. That's the one that
annoys me. On the cap. Presumably, this is all money that was already paid to them, and it's just
yeah. But it goes from like $10.7 million with Tomlinson all the way down to $100K with Nick Bawden, and it's just over $52 million total.
So honestly, if you look at those names, there's a common theme among almost all of them. they were bust free agent signings, or
In
just
many cases,
you know,
in many cases, yes, or bust draft picks. If we got to throw Zach in.
exactly.
And
So
I still think Carl Lawson would have been really good if he didn't get hurt. I'm always
yes, but the only thing that rankles for me is I felt at the time that if the Jets were going to keep Lawson, they should not have pushed money down the line with him. He took a pay cut. He went to $9 million. I felt that they should have just kept it at $9 million and not pushed money down the road, because now they have the dead cap. That was the one thing upset me. Like, people were like, oh, they should have just released him. Like, no, look, if he hadn't gotten hurt, there was still a chance. There was no reason. He had a healthy season the year before. At the very least, he was an average player. There was no reason he was worth $9 million to play last year.
Yeah, there was somewhere between, I would say, bust free agents, or at least limited free agents. I mean, Jordan Whitehead was good against the Bills when he would play them. Quentin Jefferson had some.
Quentin Jefferson played pretty well as a pass rush.
He was just very limited. He was a one-trick pony with the pass rush. Yeah,
should have brought him back.
Not going to give you run defense. So.
Yeah, still, but they've sort of resigned. So Kinlaw's taking over his spot, meaning Fotu's going to play on obvious rundowns. I had hoped that they would sign a guy who was a little bit better against the run and a little bit better I was hoping they'd sign like a Shelby Harris from Cleveland, where, who's a little bit better of a two-way player, and also I think only signed for $3 million. So, over a Fotu, but you take whatever it is. But in terms of other players, so we said interior offensive line, they're definitely signing someone, right? That they have to, unless they think Hansen is somehow NFL rosterable, which I don't think he is. So then, other than that, do you see them signing anyone? Like, do you think they'll sign a veteran receiver, even if not Corey Davis, someone else?
I'm not necessarily. By the way, I think Shelby Harris. By the way, I think he stayed with Cleveland.
He did. He did. I know. So that's what I'm saying. I was saying.
I get it.
Not now. I'm saying okay. I wanted him during the during the free agent signing period. I knew they were probably going to look to replace Al Woods. I wanted either someone like him or even like a Maurice Hurst, who's the other guy in Cleveland who can't stay healthy. But I like that.
I wanted him on the team.
I like that guy. I really wanted him. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been good. But hey, you can't invest premium money at every single position.
And also, he wanted to go back to Cleveland, so it was irrelevant. He got $1.75 million, but he wanted to go back there.
There you go. They got a lot of defensive tackles on that team.
They do. They do. And didn't they draft one also?
They may have. Why are Philadelphia and Cleveland signing like all our free agents?
Yeah.
But outside of the, I'm just checking the Browns.
You think they sign MVS? You think they sign? I don't like MVS, but I honestly rather see MVS on the field than Allen Lazard.
I don't know if there's anybody we would rather see less than Allen Lazard at this point. Maybe Robbie Anderson. That's about it.
Yeah.
Zinter, Jamari Thresh, Nathaniel Watson. I mean, Watson's more of a linebacker.
Okay. Oh, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was a different team.
Ralph Gordon. Yeah, they signed some guys we like Zach Zinter. I mean,
okay. So hold on one second.
Michael Hall, defensive end.
Michael. So I think I was thinking of Hall as more of an interior player. I might be wrong.
I kind of, I don't know. It depends on the fit, but to me, I see him as sort of like that tweener, a little more of an edge. But
you see him as an edge. Okay.
I felt that.
Do you think they're going to sign another safety? I don't. I think that last year they didn't sign another one until Clark got hurt. I don't think they're going to.
No, they'll go with what they have to work with, and they added when they brought Ashton back, I'm like, okay, fine. We have what we have. They're surrounded by a whole lot of talent. That's good, and we have some better tacklers at this point too. Chuck Clark will be good there in a mentoring role, and hopefully Key could step in. It's a little bit of a shit. How did you feel when they lost Trey Dean, just seemingly out of nowhere to Kansas City?
You know that none of the reporters actually reported that. It was just like U Stadium, which I mean, I'm not to bash U Stadium, but meaning usually I wait to actually write up an article. I usually wait for one of the Jets beat reporters or Schefter, or not to say that Schefter or Rappaport report something like that, but or NFL.com somewhere. I didn't see it anywhere. I just saw that, but I was kind of miffed. I mean, I liked him as a box safety.
Yeah, I never heard of this happening with anybody else. I could just leave and go to a team that's going to have a chance to go win a Super Bowl.
So I didn't know you could still sign. Look, I know that you can sign someone's practice squad player. They got rid of protecting practice squad players. You can't protect them. Meaning,
Right.
if another team wants to sign them to their active roster, they can. But what I did not know is that during the playoffs, you could still sign a guy off the practice squad of a team that's out of the. Like I didn't realize you could do that.
Yeah, it was like the timing of it was just so bizarre.
I mean, he was never activated, as far as I know.
But every year we have our preseason darling. Somebody that who knows who it's going to be this year.
I could see it being Leonard Taylor.
For UDFA, it could be that. I think Stiggers is just going to catch on. I've just got this good feeling about him. I really do.
Yeah, it definitely could be. Wicker's next trivia will deal with injuries. You'll have to see.
I try not to make them too depressing, but it's time to move on from the draft questions, I would say.
Let's see. At least we won't see Micah Parsons do what he did to the Jets last year. Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. And I don't appreciate the next comment, so I'm not going to put it down. Okay. Well, I'll put that one up.
Oh, that one's okay for you. Okay, I see.
Okay. Sorry, Busted Knuckles. Joe is not the only one who live streams on this channel. I usually go live every other Sunday, maybe a little bit more often. I'm trying not to do it to my husband, where I go do 2-hour streams all the time. So I limit it to every other week. But yeah, so I'm not Joe.
Joe's got the film. I got the trivia. So we all got our specialties around here.
Is it really pushing it to say that the Jets get a first-round bye when we have all these improvements and a healthy Rodgers? We expect Green Bay to get a first-round bye with him at QB?
No. Not past San Francisco, I wouldn't. Maybe up there. But
I just think, look, only one team gets a first-round bye in every given year. When there were two, it's a little bit of a different question. It's one team. We saw what Baltimore was last year. You know what Kansas City is. You know Buffalo still has Josh Allen. There are too many really good rosters in the AFC. And there's just, again, it's only one team. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it's ridiculous to hope for it. But I'm saying that it's not what my baseline expectation is.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see a home playoff game again, and then take your chances at that point. That's it. I mean, I've never liked the mentality of championship or bust. Yes, we all want a championship, but guys, we're fans. Some of us are older than others. Some are younger than others. Some of us have seen a lot of champions. Some of us have seen squat. Myself, I haven't seen any of my teams win anything in 30 years. All right, I am starved for a championship. But if you can't enjoy the ride, if you can't enjoy the process, like if you're a Knicks and Rangers fan like I am, you got to take this ride and just take it each day and try to enjoy it. Yes, these games can be stressful as hell. I'm a Rangers fan moving to Raleigh, North Carolina next week. It's driving me nuts.
Can you get in for one of the games?
In this country.
Can you get in for one of the games?
I think there's a chance I might be. I think game 4, there's a good chance I'll work something out. You can get in the building.
Sweep.
Oh, wow. You're totally not overconfident. But
I agreed with you. I thought the Rangers were going to lose this series. So.
Yeah, but the point is, you could get into PNC Arena for like $130 right now.
Weren't they trying to stop Ranger fans from buying though? Like they wouldn't. I remember a couple years ago, they wouldn't sell tickets to people with a New York or New Jersey credit card.
You either have to live in South Virginia, like I do right now, North Carolina, or South Carolina.
Okay, so they'll give it to South Virginia.
Yeah, and they did the same crap 2 years ago as well for that series. This is not the first
time they've done this. It's garbage. I'm sorry. You don't have a good fan base. The Rangers fan base travels well, and they're all clamoring to get into Raleigh because they can't afford the Garden. Sorry, that's your problem. Get a better fan base.
It's a nice town. Just realize that barbecue does not have to be just pork with a crappy vinegar sauce. That's all I'm asking of them down there.
Yeah, well, Billy, we appreciate it. Thanks.
And this is our first time doing this too, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Alan, I'm sorry, bro. I have Aaron Rodgers here. I'm thinking Super Bowl. So, look, thinking Super Bowl is one thing, but again, obviously it's the same thing, but thinking first round bye to get to the Super Bowl is a different way. Whenever I've seen the Jets good, they're always playing on the road. They're always, so just getting a home playoff game would be great. That they don't have to go through the entire playoffs on the road. I'm not looking necessarily, look, again, first round bye would be great. I, of all people, I'm the one who said I think the Jets are getting a bad rap. I think if everything comes together for them, they could be a really special team. But that's not my baseline expectation.
Yeah. Let's not be like, if you don't get the first round bye, then, this is disappointing. Just enjoy the ride as it happens game by game, because you know what? You never know how many great seasons you're going to see. You may not see another one for a while. And I think we have been through so much together as Jets fans. We have been through so much heartache, frustration, all of it. We've said, everyone's been saying it. No team in North American sports, the 4 major leagues, has gone longer without a playoff appearance than the Jets. When we get in it, we are going to take it in for all it's worth, and people are going to be making fun of us, and we're not going to freaking care what they say.
Exactly. So this is not. It's a fair point. When Tom Brady went to Tampa, where they think he'd just make the playoffs. First of all, Tampa had like an elite offensive line when Tom Brady went there, and that's a big difference. Now, not to say the Jets' offensive line could be excellent this year if they stay healthy, and if Joe Tippmann takes another step forward, if AVT is able to regain his form. But there's a lot of ifs there. Tampa had a healthy, elite offensive line. They had healthy, prime receivers. Obviously, Gronk was getting up there a little bit, but he was still Gronk. And by the way, if you remember, Tampa throughout that regular season did not look like a team ready to win the Super Bowl. They went on a run in the playoffs, but for a lot of the year, they were 7-5 at one point, I think. They had their issues that season. And, it came together for them, but it could have just as easily not.
He went to a ready-made roster.
Exactly.
It's really that simple. He went to a ready-made roster. He was not going to go to some crappy team and take everybody on his shoulders. He was just that piece for them.
Mm-hmm. So. And now the Jets hoped that, but it just wasn't. It wasn't the same.
The less I talk about that individual, the happier I am, to be honest.
Same here. I mean, literally, I root for when the Jets are out of the playoffs. I root for Patrick Mahomes just because I want him to win more Super Bowls than Brady did.
I get it. I just have never been the type to say, okay, he's greater because of champ. Based on that, Dan Marino sucked. So
true. But I think that ultimately Brady, because of Mahomes can put up the statistics. We know he can put up the numbers. The question is, but the reason that Brady gets the GOAT moniker is because of the stats and the championships. Right. I think Mahomes is the only one who can match that at this point.
I know. But yeah, then Bill Russell should automatically be the greatest basketball player of all time, if that's the logic we're using.
True.
It's just, yeah.
I'm not one who believes in that, actually, but that's just the common consensus.
I'm just so tired of the GOAT word. It is so overused because there's 8 billion GOATs. It's just like.
I know, but if there's one GOAT.
It's almost as annoying as generational talent.
It's true, but if you have to admit, if there's one guy, just because of his sheer longevity and the amount of what he was able to do, how he was able to sort of recreate himself later in his career, I just can't see how anyone could say anyone else but Brady is the GOAT. In football as quarterback. Okay. Anyways, I don't want to talk about him.
Comment.
I don't want to talk about him. We have JTS Mess said hi.
Thanks, Mess. Good to see you. Channel member. One of several channel members that we have. So he's got the cool emojis. He's got the wheel emoji, the Jets emoji, the wicker chair emoji. So he's got some pretty good talents. And channel members, I always shout out channel members with a text of their names at the end of every video. So always want to get them
now Billy's defending himself. We got some sick talent in offense and have a top 3 defense, and I shouldn't think a first round bye is possible. I absolutely do. So possible and likely are 2 different things. Is it possible? It is definitely possible. It's much more possible than it was last year. They have a better roster than they did last year. But Rodgers is also coming off a torn Achilles, which is not something to take lightly.
I can't wait to see that schedule come out. That's the next thing we have to look forward to. And that's just they draw that out as far as they can too. So I'm here in Tennessee. That's like the main vibe I'm hearing is we would open in Tennessee. So
really? Because I had heard some people on JetX had said they heard in San Francisco. I'm like, please don't. Can we please get an easier game than in San Francisco?
That may be the hardest game we would have to play all year. Yeah. Just give us Miami. Go to Miami in December, and we'll deal with the rest of it.
Exactly.
That's about it.
Let's see. Who's going to get more screen passes, Breece or Corley? What do you think?
Well, I think Breece is going to be on the field a little bit more than Corley just because he has more experience. I think it's going to be Breece. I think he gets a little bit more time than Corley does. So, yeah, give me Breece on that one.
Mm-hmm. Billy and Alan are still going at it over here.
They do that on my channel, too.
Let's see. Who are they talking about?
You were 100% correct about them staking on ice. Knobcraft. Yep, living pretty close to where I'm going to be living. Okay, well, I think I sort of know what he's talking about, but not 100% sure. I don't know if that's a Rangers Hurricanes reference, but
yeah, I wasn't sure. Passing on Van Pren in the draft for the Bills to get him. Yeah, that see, that was the kind of guy. What round was Van Pren drafted in?
like 4th round, I think. He was
exactly. So that I wanted an interior offensive line. I like Van Pren. I like some. Look, and I admit it. I did not watch their film in depth. I'm sorry, I didn't. But based on everything you heard about him, that was the type of guy that the Jets. I wanted the Jets to maybe go out and get something like that, and kind of just have depth on the offensive line.
5th round, 141 overall.
Exactly, and he's probably going to be Buffalo's starting center.
Yeah, Morse is gone now, right? Morse retired,
yep.
I believe. So,
no, I think Morse signed with. Hold on a second. Where did Mitch Morse?
I'm positive Morse said. Oh, you know what? He probably did leave. Yeah.
Jacksonville.
Okay, that's right. That's right. They had released him when they went through when they were turning basically a quarter of their roster over.
Yeah, let's see. Corley is the next Demo Samuel for the Jets. So I don't think it's fair to crown him to that level yet. But again, he has that potential. We've seen that level of just being able to take it to the house on any play, and certainly it would be ideal if he could do that for the Jets.
Yeah, it seems like every fast, kind of smallish, twitchy receiver gets the Debo comparison now.
Well, the only thing I would say is that his body type is eerily similar. Debo is 6 feet and 216, and Corley is 5'11", 215.
5'11", yeah.
So it's a very similar body type. The sort of not super tall, but very kind of I can't think of the term, but sturdy, kind of muscular, kind of looking to run people over.
I think I follow what you're saying. Okay. Well, hey, he should only be Debo. Where do I sign up for that?
Yeah. Indiana. What do you think about the Knicks in Indiana? I did listen to your. Yeah. I did watch your preview.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel confident the Knicks are going to win. I think it's going to take 6, just like it did with Philly. But I just look at the two styles of basketball. They're complete opposites. Indiana is a young, energetic, run-and-gun transition offense, shoot the lights out team that doesn't play defense or rebound. The Knicks are the best offensive rebounding team in basketball, and Indiana is among the worst defensive rebounding teams in basketball. And you got to rebound defensively if you're going to have a transition offense in basketball. If you don't have that, forget about it. So to me, the Knicks are more suited for that grinded out type of b-ball.
So I'll admit, I'll tell you how I am as a fan of sports. I'm a huge Jets fan. I'm a Mets fan, but I kind of don't have the ability to stick out the attrition over 162 games like I used to. So I follow more peripherally. I don't necessarily watch every game. I'll follow kind of what they're doing, but I don't necessarily follow it as closely. The Rangers, I follow them. The Rangers, I feel like in football and in hockey and basketball, I feel like the regular season is so stupid because more than half the league makes the playoffs. So I don't start following until the end of the season, and then I follow the playoffs. Basketball, I never became a basketball fan, and I'll tell you why. It's because in basketball, like in no other sport, what happens in the first quarter has almost no impact on what happens in the fourth quarter. You have a 20-point lead in the first quarter, and it means nothing. And so I'm like, wake me up in the fourth quarter. And because the Knicks stunk when I started out as a fan, I just never became a fan. But now they're in the playoffs, and I'm like, hey, why not? There's another New York team to support. So I've been following them, but I would not really call myself a Knicks fan.
I readily say the NBA would be my fourth. The Knicks are my fourth team, no question about it. I hate to be that guy who sounds like, when I was watching basketball back in my day and all that kind of, but it's easy when you grew up in the 80s and the 90s and you were allowed to actually play defense, and every offensive possession did end in either a 3-point shot or a little floater shot, when you actually had big men being big men. And things like that. But somewhere in the early 2000s, it all changed. And the style of play, to me, just isn't great to watch. I'll always root for the Knicks, but I'm not like an NBA fan.
See, that's the other thing. To me, all the threes just took – I mean, obviously it's fun, the threes, and, where they, and it gets the fans all excited and everything. But it doesn't make the product, like, readily engaging because I'm like, everyone's just trading threes all the time.
It basically becomes a 3-point shootout. There's a place for it, but they have moved the arc in and in and in to the point where it's almost like a college 3-pointer now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, hey, I definitely hope they win. And, I remember going to Indiana when they played them in the playoffs when Melo was there years ago. And so to see them in the second round again, Knicks should definitely win this series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that offensive rebounding thing is just the key the series. It's like if you can keep. I mean, they killed Philly with it a lot. I mean, just keep possessions going and going and going. And so if they can, again, if Philly can't, if Indiana can't rebound and the Knicks just keep rebounding, they'll score eventually.
Pretty well said. Oh, Billy said Williams goes down. You slide up Corley to number 2 and stick Robbie Anderson at 3 might work. Oh my God, no. Billy, go to bed.
They'll sign. I'll tell you. I think that they would put in yeah. I don't know. I can't even respond to that.
I'm wondering if your mind is going towards somebody we already have or somebody outside the organization, but you didn't want to say the name either way.
Exactly.
Okay, I won't pry.
Joe is still handling his rage after taking Olu. I don't know what that means. His rage?
Because he wanted a receiver so badly? Like he wanted
I mean, he did. He clearly wanted Rome Odunze, but the board, in terms of taking a receiver, the board fell about as poorly as it could have. And with the Falcons taking a receiver, I thought that if they wanted Odunze, they'd be able to trade up to 8 and get him. And I think Joe may have thought the same way. But then once the Falcons decided to take Penix, that was just shot out of the water.
I think it worked out for the best because what offensive lineman, especially tackle, would they have gotten in the 3rd round? I don't think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that was my thought process all along. But I do know that they wanted Odunze. And I had sort of kind of come around to the idea that I could see. I didn't necessarily like Odunze for this. I was like, if you could trade up and get Neighbors or Harrison, I was like, okay, that would be an elite receiving, But Odunze wasn't that to me.
The only receiver I was ever even going to consider was Harrison for a trade up. I didn't feel that way. I never felt that way about Neighbors.
I love Neighbors. The only thing I didn't love about him is that he's more of a slot guy. And, and they like to put Garrett there. So it kind of would have Harrison as an outside, a true X would have been a great fit. So, but again, I'm not complaining about what happened. Ultimately, what happened in the 1st round, they got to trade back one spot. As Saleh said, it was free money.
Free money.
Yeah. Rangers won today, at least. Yeah, we were talking about this before we came on air. Oh, this is that was you knew it was going to happen, but that was very nerve-wracking at the end. Honestly, if right after Trocheck took the penalty, if they didn't draw that penalty right after that, that would have been a real.
The fact that the worst possible person who could have taken that penalty was Trocheck.
Because they needed it. I mean, Trocheck in many ways is like they're like real, like, they went out and got Trocheck after that series against Carolina a couple years ago because of his face-offs, because he does the dirty work.
Here's all you need to know. Yeah. Trocheck in the 1st round won 71% of his face-offs.
Exactly.
Not one other Ranger even won 50%. So you put him in the box. I mean, you can see as you're watching the live stream how the color is just draining out of my face.
I just felt inevitable that they were going to tie up that game.
And then when Svechnikov takes the tripping penalty, like 3 seconds in, I'm like, I'm not ready to completely exhale.
Yeah, but at least you have a little bit of breath left.
I was checking my fingers, making sure they were moving.
But you saw how close Mika came to that hat trick. I mean, he almost had it earlier. He could have had it earlier in the game if he shot instead of.
Why was he passing back?
I don't know. Well, he passed earlier, even on the or no, he missed it. That's what he didn't pass. He missed it earlier on the Trocheck goal where he didn't score and then Trocheck put it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one he shouldn't have been. That was too much of like a Panarin playoffs kind of thing, where he passes instead of shooting.
And I saw Crystal Presti. I like Crystal Presti on WFAN does the updates. Mm-hmm. It's been a pretty quiet Panarin game so far. It's time for him to do something. 2 minutes later, boom, goal.
Yeah. That was a nice goal.
Time to over in Vegas, by the way. 30 seconds.
Oh, what's the score?
2-1 Dallas. Ottinger just made a save. So in Game 7. So that one's coming down to the wire here.
Wow. Okay, let's see. Becton over Wirf still haunts my soul. The reason it haunts me so much is because I understand that they felt that they needed a left tackle. But with all the question marks that Becton had, and there were questions about his weight. It's not just, yes, he stayed healthy in college, but there were questions about his weight. There were questions about his work ethic. Wirf's was just, everyone had him rated over Becton. It was just like, why do you do this?
I still like to think it's because they weren't able to meet with him and meet in person.
It could be. It could definitely be.
And they had a different scouting staff. I try to justify it in my mind that way, but it was like, okay, if this works, it's going to really work. If it doesn't, well. And his rookie year was still very good. There was still some things to work on, like he struggled with guys like Myles Garrett, but, I mean, who doesn't?
Everyone does, yeah.
Yeah, and then he gets hurt, and, he got rolled up on by our old buddy GVR, and he was never the same after that. And then he became better at blocking people on social media than he did on the field.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now this conversation, Breeze was better than Brady for quite a while. Breeze was better than Rodgers for quite a while too. Brady reached a point. That's why I said he reinvented himself later in his career, because his last couple of years in New England, he really looked like he was a quarterback on the decline. He really did not look like he was that guy anymore. And frankly, even in Tampa, as good as he was, he had to reinvent himself into. He was just getting the ball out fast. Like get the ball out in literally 2 seconds flat, because he didn't have the arm strength anymore and he couldn't move. So he would just, but yeah, there was a point where Brady was not, I would say for the couple of years was not even a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Yep. Breeze was better than Rodgers too. Yeah, Rodgers definitely had a couple of years in there where he looked, well, it was when they took Jordan Love and then he became the MVP in back-to-back years.
How many, did Breeze win an MVP?
Did Drew Brees?
Rodgers has won like 4, I think.
4.
Like yeah.
I don't think Breeze he never won an MVP.
4th. Wow. 3, 2, 1. That's game, and the first round's over. Dallas advances to the next round against. I think that's the Colorado series. That's going to be a heck of a series.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Let's see. I would say Rivka and Adam put on a lively show. They match in personality very well. We appreciate it, Billy.
Yeah, we're 2 Jersey folks,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Funny how no takers for Bill Belichick for head coach. Those reports about how Robert Kraft told Arthur Blank not to hire him are hilarious.
It was quite funny, but yeah, his age, he wants to control everything, and you have to basically clear out your whole organization for somebody who's going to be there for who knows how long.
Probably only. I bet that Belichick is only sticking around because he wants the record for the most wins. Yep. I don't. Although it's actually pretty entertaining to see him on. It was entertaining to see him on draft coverage to hear what he's, what he thinks and things like that, because obviously he's been a bad drafter, but he's still, interesting. It's always interesting to hear from these guys.
Oh my gosh, yeah. New England's draft record in recent years has been terrific.
Atrocious.
And I'll never forget. Say whatever people can say whatever they want about Brady, but I will always be proud that the final play of his career in New England was a pick 6 in the playoffs.
That's excellent. We got to bench Pete Alonso for his sake. He's got, look, Pete Alonso goes into these funks sometimes, and then he just needs to work his way out of it. Benching him is not going to help.
It's a collective slump right now between Nimmo, McNeil, and Alonso. Lindor's been showing some signs lately, but the offense, losing Francisco Alvarez was definitely a blow to that team, I think, to the offense. But it shouldn't. The fact that, I'm seeing some people about, this guy's got to get fired. This guy's got to get. I don't want to hear that.
No one's getting fired.
You have to give this thing some time to get a.
No one's getting fired this year. Honestly, if they end up 500 this year, it's a great year.
I was thinking 83 wins maybe, but that was about it. I figured they bring somebody. And when Senga went down, that really hurt. But he's supposed to be back in about 3 weeks, and you have a really good young pitching prospect who's in the rotation to stay. And some of these kids are going to come up a little bit later on down the road. So, I looked at this as a transition year anyway. So,
yeah, no, I did too. No one's getting fired. No. Analytics changed all sports. Absolutely. And, it's funny. When I was a kid, I hated, especially growing up, let's say I was a big running game and defense kid, when I was watching the Jets. Obviously, that's because that was what the Jets were, but I just always enjoyed watching those kinds of games. I hated it when football became this big, high-flying passing sport. But after a while, I just said, if you can't beat them, join them. So I started following the analytics and understanding why these things are the way they are, and, trying to maximize, what you're doing. It makes sense. Look, honestly, 3-pointers, it makes sense. If you could get a 3-point shot as opposed to a 2-pointer, it's just more efficient that way. In every sport, whatever has become more wide open, passing is far more efficient than running. It's unfortunate, yes, especially for people who like that, but it's just a reality.
Yeah, pretty well said. I enjoy doing the research on this stuff. Sometimes it gets a little bit crazy even for my mind. It's like, okay, now we're going a little bit, because numbers are all well and good, but you got to be able to understand it. And that's why when I do my show on Wednesdays, I make the PowerPoint slides, the Google slides, because I don't want to be sitting there just spouting off a bunch of numbers to everybody. I hate it. Truth, I hated math in school. Hated it. Okay? I was a history guy.
You're talking to the former math teacher.
I know that. That's why I knew you'd find that extra amusing. But I'm good with presenting numbers, but I want to present in a way that makes it understandable. That's why I create the slides that way. That way I don't sound like a freaking math teacher because you probably do a better job of it than I would.
Well, not just that, but yeah, look, Jets X Factor caters in terms of our, the analytics. We cater to a certain crowd of Jets fan with that kind of article. But in terms of, especially when you're running a show, yeah, you can't just spout out analytics all the time without explaining at least a little bit more about where they come from. Because no
and I've seen when I read one of Michael's article, it's funny. I'll go into one of his articles. The first thing I look at is the elevator bar, and if it's like really, really small, I'm like, oh god, I'm going to need 20 minutes on this one.
So it's interesting you say that, because one thing about between me and Michael, not to say that I never write long articles, but I think I tend, maybe he definitely goes more into depth in certain subjects than I do. But I think also sometimes he'll say things, not that he's not concise, but he'll just like, let's say I'm like, I would have written the same thing, but I would have just written it in half the amount of space.
Okay.
It's just something about the way maybe I think about the topic. Like, I'm not saying all the time. A lot of times he really does go into more depth than I do, and that's why his articles are longer. But sometimes I'm like, hey, I was thinking of writing that, and I literally would have written it much shorter. But yeah, but again, we cater to a certain style of Jet fan. We're not, that's definitely not something that we, that we hide.
Who's this new target going to be now that Dalvin Cook is gone, I wonder?
Who, Michael?
Yeah.
Well, you should ask who my new target's going to be now that Jordan Whitehead is gone.
Well, CJ is gone. CJ, that was one, and Dalvin Cook was the other one. So now I'm wondering.
So let me think. Hold on a second. Who's going
to be for you without Whitehead?
Probably both of us. It'll be Kinlaw, I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it'll be Kinlaw, or it'll be Lazard if he's around. Hopefully he won't be.
But that's everybody.
Yeah.
I just don't let it be Tony Adams. That's all I'm asking.
No. We never pick on the extent I said with Tony Adams is that he didn't. There was a lot of hype surrounding him last offseason. So compared to the hype, he didn't necessarily play as well. But he played fine. I mean, he's not bad.
Okay.
Yeah. No, not Tony Adams. I think if there's one guy, it would probably be Kinlaw.
Yeah, now that I'm kind of like running through the roster in my mind, it's really hard to think of somebody that realistically would be like, I don't have a lot of confidence in.
Oh, you know who mine is? Brandon Echols. I just don't like the guy for some reason. I think Jet fans overrate him because he did okay in his rookie season. I just feel like whenever he's on the field, he's always, I don't know, penalty or something. He's not on the field that often, but when he is, bad things happen.
I haven't thought of it that way before, but all right, I'll go with it.
Again, he's a backup cornerback. When a backup cornerback is on the field, people are going to throw his way. It's now like when Cromartie was on the other side of Revis. Like,
we should have kept Arthur Millette all these years.
Yeah, no, he's probably better than some of the other guys. The truth is, I looked up the numbers; they weren't so bad.
All right.
Let's see. Jets never consider. Who says they never considered J.C. Latham? I think they would have taken him if he had been there.
I would have taken Fashanu over Latham myself. There's certain people who love Latham. I just did not have a good vibe on him. I don't know. Felt like more of a right tackle for me. And
he was more of a right tackle, and that could be what they took. They would have taken him fashion.
Just the way he's playing, he just Padlet looks injury prone. I just didn't like the vibe I got from him. I thought he was fine, but I did not have him ranked second behind Joe Alt. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, let's see this one. Would you have traded down again to mid-teens after Dunze was picked? Fautano or Brian Thomas Jr. would have been okay. No, I wouldn't have, because I like Fashanu better than Fautano. I was not 100% sold that Fautano could play tackle. He could, maybe. I wasn't sold on it. And Thomas Jr. to me could either become a really, really like a Christian Watson, or he could become a Marcus Valdes-Scantling.
Yeah, I came up with the name Fasha Gatanu for the three. For those three offensive linemen, just the trinity of offensive linemen.
I think the Jets had offers to move back. Obviously, they had the offers from the Falcons to move back to the second round, but I think they probably had other offers. I think they didn't want to go past Fashanu.
If there's a player you like enough, you just take him. You can't always take. I know we love the idea of acquiring more opportunities, more swings at the plate, but sometimes you need your best hitter to swing the bat for you. If that makes sense. You want the best opportunity to get a hit rather than have your big hitter up at the plate as opposed to maybe like a couple utility spots.
Yeah.
Give me the one shot with my best opportunity to make an impact. And trading down one spot absolutely made all the sense in the world. But after that, it's like you were starting to – because I'll tell you, New Orleans, I guarantee, would have taken Fashanu.
Yeah, they would have. They need. I mean, with Ramczyk and
Mm-hmm.
Hurst, and yeah, I mean they're in
And
trouble.
Penning being a
Penning
big
and bust.
disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, Patano to me too much of a hybrid. I like Fuaga, but again, right tackle, but a mauler. But we would have gone into the season with a huge question at left tackle because it'd been like Tyron Smith and then your other boy Carter Warren. So yeah, we couldn't go into that situation. We did
Yeah.
what we
Okay.
had to do. So
Okay. Yeah. I started going further down the chat since I didn't realize how far behind we were.
they've kept
Let's
going,
see.
Chat. Man, yeah, Chat's been pushing
Yeah.
it tonight.
Yeah. Let's see. Someone said we should have signed Shota Imanaga.
I actually did a video on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this would make a lot of sense. So I didn't know he was going to.
They just didn't want to spend money on. I think they want to see what they have in their kids, and they're.
You got to remember, if they had signed even like a Jordan Montgomery, you would have paid
their
price.
Yeah,
You'd
exactly.
Paid another $25 million in tax. Would I liked them in Aga? Yes, absolutely, I would have. But it just didn't make sense for the budget. They still have the highest payroll in baseball. So good on the Cubs. As much as I hate that franchise, after living there for 5 years.
Yeah. Now let me ask you something. Do you think Kuntz is going to end up making this roster?
Oh my God! I want him to.
Yeah, but do you think he will?
The answer is we really have no idea. We don't know what kind of developments he's made in the offseason, but I think when minicamp comes around, that'll be one of the first names I'll be looking at to see what are the people saying about him. Is he making an impact? Because he was a raw piece of clay last year. We didn't expect too much from him, and he wasn't able to give us much anyway. But this is one of those guys who has to make the step up this year.
So I have to say, I'm going to guess that if they don't sign a veteran tight end, that Kuntz is going to make the roster because they seem to like to carry 4 tight ends.
I could see that as well. I just find it a little hard to think that they would have. If they do that, though, I think Yeboah's got to be a little bit more than special teams. I think
it will be as a tight end 3. They tend to use their number 3 tight end at least occasionally.
Yeah, but Yeboah is really he was really
he is.
specials, though. They really use 2 tight ends as far as offense goes. Maybe 1 or 2 snaps. That's really maybe when you want 3 tight ends for a running play, which would never work for us anyway last year. That's the point. But yeah, I want Kuntz to make it. Yeah, he's going to be one of those players I can't wait to really see what kind of progress he's made. And if he hasn't, then I'm not feeling good. I actually saw Jerome Capp made a pretty big play in one of those United Football League games.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, good to see. It was like, man, I wish it could have
worked out. Guy.
Had like a big hit on special teams or something. So
yeah. He was you talked about him last year in a video. I remember last
I had a good feeling about him, but it didn't quite work out for him.
Yeah.
So.
Now, JetX were the first to promote Adams. It's true. Joe Blewett did a video about Adams when he made the roster, explaining why the Jets kept Adams over Jason Pinnock, which it happens to be, if you look at it now, the Jets might actually be, not to say that they should have kept Pinnock over Adams, but maybe they should have kept Pinnock over someone else, because Pinnock is a starting safety for the Giants, and he does a pretty decent job.
He's pretty decent. Yeah, he's
decent. He's definitely, meaning, if they had Pinnock as extra depth, it would be, they'd be in better shape.
Yeah, I mean, Pinnock, he'll make a play, but then he'll lose out. The only reason he was really playing much is because Xavier McKinney had his little.
No, so actually he was their starting safety last year. That's the thing. Originally he was only playing because of McKinney, but then this past year he won very early in camp. He won their free safety job, and he played the deep safety spot. And he did a decent job. I was surprised they put him in the deep safety role, to be honest, because I think McKinney's a better deep safety, and I thought that Pinnock was better in the run game, so you should put him closer to the line. But they put him deep, and he was okay. I mean, he wasn't anything special, but he wasn't terrible.
No, yeah, we could tell he was adequate, and given by the Jets to, I guess they kind of initiated the move to safety, and but they let him go. I mean, it was one of those times when
they just liked Adams better, and they thought they could sneak Pinnock onto the practice squad.
I mean, we lost 9 guys, 8-9 guys that one that cut down day.
Yeah, that year they literally, and they were all claimed. Everyone. Yeah.
Wesco was the main one that I remember. Wesco and Pinnock were the first 2 that even Isaiah Dunn, the original big time UDFA. That was
Yeah, but just about Adams, Michael had written an article last offseason saying last year, early in camp or even during OTAs, saying that he thought Tony Adams was going to have a very intriguing potential. So Michael's definitely not going to rag on Tony Adams, and I won't either. I like Tony Adams. McDonald is going to be under a microscope. I think that putting him under a Bryce Huff microscope is unfair. To me, I want to see him, get pressure. I'm hoping to see him cause a few forced fumbles, to be honest, because that's kind of one of the things I think the Jets liked about him. I want him to finish the season with an above average pressure rate, above average pass rush win rate, and some impact plays throughout a game.
And we say impact plays, that's sacks, tackles for a loss as well. To me, I think that's one of the more underappreciated stats in the game. That's something I always look at, because sacks are one thing, and you can't always look up pressures, but I can look up tackles for a loss. Because we talked about McDonald made a little bit of an impact last year in the run game. He can defend against the run. He just didn't get a whole lot of opportunities, and yes, he could probably use a little bit more size. But I think McDonald would embrace being under the microscope, because he's going to have every opportunity to show what he could do.
Echoes more dangerous behind soon. Sorry?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Bryce Hall is underrated, always has been. I like Bryce Hall. Sad to see him go, but I could understand why. I think Isaiah Oliver will be fine, and the advantage of Isaiah Oliver over Bryce Hall is that he can also play the slot. So I thought it was a decent signing.
And Isaiah Oliver can help a lot on special teams too.
Yeah. So what are we expecting from McDonald? I could see so McDonald's not going to get enough playing time. Now, I guess that's not entirely accurate, because Bryce Huff got 10 sacks last year, and if McDonald gets to 30%, he could up to 40% snaps. Technically, he could also get 10 sacks. I would be thrilled if McDonald had, let's say, so I think average pressure rate for edge defender was like 11, almost 12% last year. So you told me he got 14% pressure rate, and he got me, 6 sacks and a handful of, he made a few, tackles for loss, got a couple of forced fumbles, and he was, disrupting the pass, or you noticed him throughout a game. I would take that.
That seems pretty reasonable. I don't know if I have specific numbers on him. I was thinking maybe 7 to 8 sacks, but yeah, but that steady pressure rate, I want to see him flash more than one time a game. I think that was the main thing. I want to see more consistent pressure from him. Because there'd be times you would see McDonald's like, oh, there's Will McDonald. But you would only see that maybe 1-2 times a game. Let's see it now 1 or 2 times a quarter. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's what I want.
Let's see this one. What do you think of the first defensive player going at 15? It's the hip band. I don't agree with that. What do you think?
I don't think it has to do with the hip band. I think it just shows you where the game is going in this particular class. But, yeah, I think the prediction that I made was it'd be like 20 first-round players. I thought I was going to set a record, and it did. I think 19 was the previous record for offensive players going in the first round, and this was like 2021. So it was quite a bit. But, yeah, I don't like how they seemingly continue to take defense or they try to reduce the role of defense. But, it's very common as the betting, as fantasy sports increase. That's what I think it is. Offense gets rewarded because points, scores, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that stuff's more emphasized. And and that's not that I want to get in a whole thing on betting here, but when these leagues are, have betting, like sponsoring them, and then they get on these players because they bet and stuff like that. It's like, well, what did you even expect?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so hard, and the style of play is reflecting it too now. So.
Yeah. No, I think it was also this draft and what teams needed. I mean, offensive line play was horrific last year. So it's not surprising that a bunch of offensive tackles were going to go high. And it was also just the talent in the draft. The talent was very offense heavy. I don't think the hip drop, the ban had anything to do with it. Now, Davis much better than Izzy, shiftier, quicker, but overall better. I mean, look, Izzy is a one-trick pony. He has speed. He has very bad contact balance. He can't catch the ball. He can't block. You can see why the Jets wanted to replace him.
Yeah. Dakota coming with some troll comments tonight, I noticed, but we'll let that go. Yeah, I mean, he couldn't do a whole lot except run fast in a straight line as of right now. You have to learn, but I'll give any rookie 1 year to learn the NFL style. I'll always give them a year before I say they suck. All right, either we carry 4 tight ends or 4 running backs. What do you choose? I'm going with the tight ends. I want the extra.
Yeah, I agree.
The special teams, give me the 4 tight ends, and either, and then let Allen to me is on the team, and then pretty much Davis. I think Davis would have the edge, but let Izzy fight his way back onto the roster.
Yeah, it's time for McDonald and Clemens to play leapfrog and make that big leap. So I could see McDonald making a leap. To be honest, I think Clemens is what he is. hopefully he gets back down to that 270 mark and he can go back to, just being a very good run defender, because he was pretty mid in that area and he gave no pass rush whatsoever this past season. I don't think he's going to do much more than that. He's very stiff. He doesn't really have any moves. He rushes very straight up. But again, if he's good in run defense, you can live with that. And that's my hope for him.
Yeah, and if he's going to have these incidents with some of these other players in the league, obviously Deion Dawkins, who seems like just a lovely person. Well, you better be on the field and you better be able to go against him because he can play. So, but yeah, like I said, I think the Jets mishandled Clemens last year, telling him to put some weight on, and that took away, his quickness. And like I said,
I just think they were trying to turn him into JFM, but he's not. He's just not. He doesn't have the same quickness inside as JFM does. He's better to be a big edge than than an undersized defensive tackle.
Yeah, putting it inside it just didn't work. It didn't work. But if it becomes like a primarily run-stopping defensive end who can set the edge, I can live with that.
I'll live with that. Yeah,
we're
going to lose some players before they reach the practice squad. I wonder who. We'll see. It depends who they cut. I thought Kuntz was going to be claimed last year. He wasn't. So maybe sometimes we tend to overrate the Jets players just a tad.
Yeah, I mean, we could easily see 10 defensive linemen on this roster, for one thing, and not many linemen. I got a feeling we will lose at least one draft pick from last.
And I think from last year.
From last year, like Barnes, Izzy, JBC, one of those type guys.
Izzy more likely, I think, because Barnes, I think they really like him as a developmental linebacker. JBC right now, unless they bring in another safety or someone else beats him out, which is possible. It's definitely possible. I think, they kept him on the pup last year, I think, and then they kept him on the team. So I think they may see some potential in him. So I don't know.
They're going to have some difficult decisions. Do you think question with the roster I wanted to throw your way because I'm kind of I know what you wrote in your article, but now we've seen the rookie minicamp. Do you think Jordan Travis starts this year on the 53 or does he start on the pup list?
From what Saleh said, it seems like they expect him back in training camp. So, I thought pup originally just from how Douglas was so, kind of non-committal. But from what Saleh said, I think if he's there in training camp, he'll be on the 53.
Yeah, because you got to think about another thing. Who's going to play these preseason games at quarterback?
Well, I think Roger, it's funny. I asked Robbie, I said, do you think Rogers is going to play a preseason game this year? He said, absolutely. He's going to want to. He's going to be itching to get back on the field. So he's going to play one, at least a series again. But the other ones, I imagine it would be Travis.
Yeah, I would think so too. Yeah, because I was thinking, well, maybe I could sneak in 4 running backs and 4 tight ends, but I can only have 2 quarterbacks.
Only if Travis would be on the pup, but now it looks like he's going to make the team.
And now my mind is starting to shift in that direction. So
yeah. Okay, I wanted to say hi because I never saw you before. Empire State Construction LLC. Hi, all. Nice win by the Stars. Yes, nice win. Hi, Empire.
Hey, Empire. Thanks for dropping by.
Let's see. Who else?
Yeah, we still got some catch up to play here. Whew. Chat's bringing.
Why did JD draft Izzy knowing he had a poor pass block in college history? Still, he's young enough to still develop. So I don't know. I guess I'll let you take a stab at that.
He's fast. He's like a track. He's from Brooklyn and he's fast. That's pretty much what I got for you.
Let's see. Anything. I'm always cautiously optimistic with the Jets. Absolutely. Got to stop running on. Stop the run to get to 3rd and long. Wonder where they are minus JFM. Look, Look, Reddick is not a terrible run defender. JJ is a very good run defender. You have Clemens, who in his rookie year was a pretty good run defender. If they, you have some of these other guys that they, maybe Braden McGregor, between these guys, and look, the NFL, yes, you maybe have to stop the run on one of 1st or 2nd down. Teams don't generally run on 1st and 2nd down. And look, I know it's definitely going to be a loss, JFM. I'm not denying it, but I'm more concerned, honestly, about the interior defensive line against the run than I am anyone besides Quinnen than I am. And we'll see how Fotu does, but Fotu seems to play smaller than his size. So,
yeah, Quinnen's an elite run defender, but again, the way the Jets rotate their defensive line, Quinnen's going to see 65-70% of the snaps. What happens when he's not on the field? What are we going to do? We're going to Fotu and Kinlaw? Is that what we're going to do here? Solomon Thomas?
It's a big concern because Thomas is terrible against the run. Kinlaw is terrible against the run. And so that's kind of why I said Shelby Harris, because I was hoping for more of a two-way player so that they could get like more of a starter type. And,
paging Leonard Taylor, God willing. But
yeah. But again, he's not a good run defender at defensive tackle. Thomas Christopher from our site actually wrote an article that perhaps it behooves the Jets to have him lose 10 pounds and have him try to fill that JFM role where he plays on the edge on early downs against the run and then rushes the passer from the inside.
And I thought what was interesting, one of the scouts that I was listening to on another video said, and this was before he'd even been drafted. This is like 2 months ago this video was made. And he said, Taylor is very, I'm paraphrasing, is like a scheme-specific player. He will only thrive in certain roles. But the best chance for him to succeed is to be in a heavy rotational defense that emphasizes getting to the quarterback. I thought, I know a team like that.
I mean, Douglas said on the Jets podcast, actually, he said it a day or two ago, he said Taylor was a perfect scheme fit. And so that, yeah.
I thought he was going 4th round easily, maybe even
that's
3rd round.
That's what most people said. Most people said 4th round, and so I mean, but again, there are some questions about him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Of course.
Let's see. Let's go. I'm going down. There's a lot of.
You said you had to be careful of the 2-hour streams. Well, good news. It's not a 2-hour stream. It's already 2.5 hours.
It's 2.5 hours. So you want to call this a night?
We can do a few more minutes.
We're almost finished. Someone will get to one
more
last comment on the chat. In my opinion, JFM was an emotional JG trade because of JFM's passive-aggressive tweet. I think you were right before what you said about JFM. It's just that he wanted the playing time. He wasn't willing to take that kind of pay cut.
Yeah, it came down to money and playing time. But yep, JFM was here for a good amount of time, and hopefully he realizes that the Jets gave him a chance to sort of resurrect his career after he had been let go by the Rams.
And they also gave him more money than any other team would have given him.
Yeah, so yeah.
I mean, he's a good player, but they overpaid him.
He was like that first big contract that JD gave out that was like one of their own. It was like an in-season. That was when they were in London playing Atlanta, right? Mm-hmm. Like they had the press conference there, like in London, as I remember, or somewhere in England. So hopefully in time, once he's on Denver and he's on a team that absolutely stinks, that has, Stidham, Wilson, and how does JFM feel now that he's back with Zach Wilson? He's like, I thought I got rid of you.
Yes, and I'm sure he's thrilled to go from Aaron Rodgers. That's
what Joe Douglas was doing. He said, "Oh, you don't want to be with us anymore? Guess who we send you back to?" JFM and Zach back together again.
Yeah. Okay, and I guess this one last comment. I know I keep saying this one last comment. Not this one. Not this one. I didn't like trading up for a quarterback that likely won't play this year. Waiting for Travis to drop would have allowed us to pick Brendan Rice in the 6th round. And I'm not. I mean, I don't really love Brendan Rice. So I'm not going to cry over that.
It's okay. There are a lot of good receivers. I would take Ryan Flournoy from Southeast Missouri State. That was a sleeper that I really liked too. But
he was.
Rice was another one who dropped a little bit. But you know what? Hey, Frank Gore wasn't drafted,
mm-hmm.
and I wasn't surprised by that one. I think if you take the name away, then
yeah.
So sometimes we got to look past that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. On that note, I think we're going to finish this 2.5 hour long stream. Adam, thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure to finally get the chance to speak. Thanks, guys, in the chat. We really appreciate it. Adam, tell everyone where they can find your stuff.
So check out my channel, NY Sports Wicker Media. I go live on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. This week I will be off because, I'm moving and I'm not going to have any internet Wednesday night. But I'll still be doing some stuff. We did a live stream earlier today, Rangers Hurricanes. We did that. I've got a Knicks Pacers preview, and the plan right now is to do a video after Knicks Pacers game 1. But the Wednesday night show is primarily Jets focused. We do the Jets trivia, we do news analysis, and we bring out the wheel, the infamous wheel. I don't know how many times we've seen the wheel, but it gets very, very crazy, very, very chaotic, and a whole lot of fun. So definitely come by to NY Sports Wicker Media. And this has been a lot of fun. I want to thank you for having me as well. This was cool.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to JetsXFactor.com. Again, you're going to get the most in-depth Jets coverage that you'll get anywhere. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. Take care.